is just wildly inappropriate. And yet, I'm really glad you're here.
Your actions were totally inappropriate.
For some reason, he felt that it was inappropriate.
Look into the camera and say something inappropriate.
You don't get personal. That is totally inappropriate behavior.
How inappropriate!
What exactly about my methods are inappropriate?
He tweeted some inappropriate things.
That's a little inappropriate, don't you think?
At what point is it inappropriate?
No, inappropriate. Inappropriate. Stop it right now. That is unbelievably inappropriate.
You're vulgar. You're inappropriate.
That's just grossly inappropriate.
Wow, you are so inappropriate.
It's such an inappropriate description.
Inappropriate, but precise.
Oh, you know what's inappropriate?
It's completely inappropriate! Why?
That's inappropriate! That's inexcusable!
Inappropriate things.
Be totally inappropriate.
Inappropriately so.
How very inappropriate, thank you.
Inappropriate.
It's wildly inappropriate. This is incredibly inappropriate.
This is highly inappropriate.
Okay, this is inappropriate. Grossly inappropriate.
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 Hello, can you hear me out there? This is the RPGPundit, the final boss in Internet Shitlords, and this is Inappropriate Characters. I am joined as usual by Venger Satanis and by Ryan, and we're also having a special guest star tonight, which is Griffith Morgan, who this is, I believe, his third time on the show. But before we get to anything, I think I wanted to share a little bit of news here, just in case any of you haven't heard. The Argentinian presidential election has called it in, and Javier Milei, the anarcho-capitalist, is the new president of Argentina. Viva la libertad, carajo. And note, it's really amazing. Argentina is an absolute, crap hole country of third world poverty, massive hyperinflation, and corrupt politicians, and yet somehow they managed to get an uncontested election over 3 hours after they closed the polls on the same night. Okay.
What about they don't have any
Democrats? What are you guys doing wrong over there?
That's why they don't have any Democrats. That's how they can get away with that.
Well, they have Peronistas, which are probably as bad as Democrats, but somehow they still manage it.
Probably not as sneaky though.
No, they're smart.
Election rigging, and
they're not smart.
Voter fraud.
Yeah.
Take that, MSNBC.
All right, so now we're going to get on with the show. I just figured some of you guys who have now discovered who Javier Milei was and have been enjoying his memes are going to be quite happy with that news. So tonight we've got a number of topics to talk about, but first of all, welcome Griffith to the show again. And for those, did you just talk?
I just talked, and I guess my mic was muted, but I didn't know that.
Now it's good. Now I can hear you. Okay.
Let me repeat what I said.
Yeah.
I really like Venger. He's such a nice guy. That's not what I said, but he really is. I was at his convention. He's a really nice guy. No, it's nice to be back, you guys. It's really good to see you all.
Just in case any of you aren't aware, so Griffith is the producer, I guess it would have been, of Secrets of Blackmoor, which is one of the best documentaries on the origins of D&D. Co-director.
Yeah, Chris produced it. I directed and wrote and edited, and he did all the camera work.
Okay. All right. So, and so he's also the publisher of The Lost Dungeons of Tonisborg, which is, frankly, one of the greatest to me, it's one of the best dungeon products I think I've ever seen certainly in terms of like D&D and the OSR, right?
Yeah, I appreciate that.
It's a wonderful combination of a history book, a glimpse at what the origins of D&D was like, and a faithful reproduction of one of the earliest dungeons of the RPG world. So
yeah, we're really happy with that.
What have you been up to since then?
Oh God. Well, you know, I go on and we harass people together on Twitter, and
it's always fun.
So that's kind of the norm. I went to VengerCon. That was really awesome. You know, I just was looking at the chat on my YouTube, but I had to turn it off because I had doubling audio on that. But I noticed Judd was there. I got to play with Judd on Sunday, and he's probably he's probably the best dungeon master I've ever played with ever. If you ever get a chance, like, it's worth going to VengerCon just so you can play in a game with Judd, because he was freaking amazing. He was so on top of every little detail. I was just like, oh, this
he's a great player too.
Yeah,
he played in I think 3 of my games at VengerCon.
And did he push you? Like, was he pushing you a little bit as far as like, oh, okay, I got to think of what I hadn't thought of that part of the adventure. I guess we're going to go down that avenue.
Yeah, he pushed me a little bit. He's not just like a passive wallflower like a lot of players unfortunately are. I mean, he puts himself out there, and he uses his character to both establish and move like the world forward, and also like whatever action is happening. So the game isn't just kind of like at a standstill.
It's not passive. He's not a passive player. But I just wanted to continue with my spiel. What's Griff been up to? No, we went to GaryCon last year. We went to VengerCon. Then in October, we ran our own convention, little tiny convention called Arnicon. And that was pretty amazing, actually. It was a small convention, really intimate. I would say it was like 2 guests to 1 original Blackmoor player. Wow. Yeah, it was like everybody there was like, oh my God, I got to like have coffee.
So that was Arnicon as in Dave Arneson, right? As in honor of him.
Yeah, we just replaced the S with a C. We might put a little like the French, you know, Arneson. And we're gonna do another one next year. And and we've been digging up old games. I wish I had it with me. Ken Fletcher, who did a lot of the art for adventure games, came up to me and is like, you know, I have this original manuscript. I've had it for like 30 years now. Well, actually, probably like 40, 50 years. He got it in the 80s. He's like, I just want it to be in safe hands, and so I want to hand it over to you since I know you do a lot of history research. So we got a manuscript to a game called Mutant, which was like, you know, never been published, supposed to be published by TSR. TSR didn't want it because they were in the throes of hating on Dave Arneson and anybody from the Twin Cities. And so we got this. It's like the size of like a basic D&D set. Like if you filled that with typed pages, one-sided, and you had a manuscript that's this thick for a mutant game on an alien planet from 1985, which originated probably more like in 1974. It was just a draft for another attempt to publish.
Is this going to be a future Kickstarter for you? Something that you're going to get published out?
Well, McGarry really liked, that was one of his favorite games that he played back in the day. And so David McGarry wants to be the editor. So we're going to be running that through a scanner and putting it through an OCR to get turn it into like Word documents. And then David McGarry's going to hop on board as the lead editor of that. And then what else? We also saw, at Arnicon was interesting because people were showing up with all kinds of artifacts. I got a bunch of artifacts that I posted on my, I posted some samples on my blog of unseen Arneson write-ups of adventures where he describes some of the earliest dungeon dives and tells you what his players were doing. In some instances, he describes how much damage, like how many monsters they killed each round. And he's describing the dungeon, and some of the historian guys that I've shown it to are like, oh yeah, you can trace this through the original Blackmoor maps. We know exactly where they are, you know. And then Paul Stormberg was there from the Collector's Trove, and he has a draft of an original manuscript that was done in the 80s because Arneson was trying to redo. He wanted to republish Blackmoor in a more playable format than First Fantasy Campaign. And so we got a peek at that. So that's another one we're going to probably be working on as well. And then what else? You know, we're still selling. I mean, if you can go to Barnes and Noble or Penguin Bookstore, even, I think Penguin Online, or even Walmart actually, or Amazon, and you can get. We now have our paperback version of Tonisborg. So you just go onto whatever site and go boop, and one will arrive at your house.
I do have a question for you that's come out of the chat here, and it was mentioned on my. I announced on my last video that we were going to be on Inappropriate Characters, and someone made. I think it's the same guy. Yeah, it's the same guy. He made this comment. Have you had some kind of an issue relating to Justin Lanasa?
I keep getting people talking to me about something going on with Lanasa, and I don't know. And I honestly haven't been. You know, I talk to everybody, and so I mean, it's almost like if you're on if you're on somebody's shit list, then I'm the guy that's going to talk to you because I'm interested in, like, well, that's interest. There's fire. There must be smoke. I'm interested.
I think the claim has something to do with Lanasa's apparently trying to sell the.
I don't know anything about it, and I don't know.
Museum, and that Lanasa has been publicly claiming that actually Arneson had very little to do with D&D. This is all allegations from these comments. I'm not saying that I
you this in the chat.
He's claiming that Arneson had nothing to do with D&D, and it was actually Gygax and Bloom that did all the work.
But who is this telling you in this chat?
Oh, this is our friend L, which means that
L.
It may
L, that's like the character from
or may not be true.
What the hell was that? Death Note. L was in Death Note. It's one of my favorite characters. Your buddy Lanasa. See, that's the thing, is like, I get, you know, I don't even want to go into that, Pundit. It's another one of those things where it's like, a lot of people don't like Lanasa.
It was presented here, right? But I mean, if you have no comment, then that's an
well, this is another one of those BS things where people show up and they're like, oh, do you know who's in your follower list? You know? And it's just like that. It's like, your buddy Lanasa. Well, I talked to Lanasa, and I don't have any problems with him because we talk about game industry business stuff, and you know, and I know that a lot of people do.
I've never met him or interacted with him in any real way, but he does seem like quite the character.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you know, you get the same thing, Pundit, or even you, Van. I mean, all of you guys. It's like you're a target, and people will associate you with other, you know, like even being on your show, people are going to be like, oh, well, Griff must be a Nazi because he hangs out with the, you know, I mean, it's going to show up. You know, did I say the bad word? Are you going to get the show canceled?
Stays up.
Yeah. No, I mean, you know what I'm saying, though. It's just like, it's all allegations. Like I've had numerous people come up to me and say, you talked to Lanasa. What's Lanasa doing? He posted this thing, and I'm like, well, show me the thing. And they're like, well, it doesn't exist. And I'm like, okay, well, then I can't help you. Like, if you don't even have screenshots of this thing that's supposed to be this nefarious anti, and then they want to start a fight. They want to get me riled up, you know, like, oh, you're being anti Dave Arneson. I've got to hate you now.
I have to toot my own horn here that right from the very start of the new TSR, I had predicted that it was going to be an absolute clusterfuck. You know, that it was just going to be a disaster. And once again, RPG Pundit can say, "I told you so." You know?
Well, yeah. I don't want to go into that because it's like I'm not, you know, I'm not in control of that. That's not my project. You know.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's the third person that's brought up this thing, and it's like this whole thing where people want me. They sort of see me as sort of the champion for Dave Arneson, right? And so I'm going to come out. You know,
right? Like, I'm guessing you are a bit of a champion for Dave Arneson, right?
Yeah. Well, I mean, you know,
you
get close to me.
For him
I don't know. I don't know where to go with that. Like, where else can we go with that? It's like, okay, Lanasa showed some stuff.
We'll move on. We'll move on.
Nobody has shown me. Like, I don't even know what this is.
Yeah, this is the first I heard of it too, but I haven't been following the drama around Lake Geneva or anything like that. You know, like it's not. it's not all that interesting to me. But I felt I had to present it just in case you had like a lot to say about it. But if you don't, you don't. That's good.
Well, I wish I did. I've asked around. I've asked people to like show me what you're talking about. I don't even know what they're talking about. You know.
Well, I saw something on.
I mean, this ties in with what the real theme of the show is.
I don't know if it was Tenkar, but somebody on Tenkar's Tavern was talking about how they're like trying to sell the Dungeon Hobby Shop Museum for like $5 million. And I'm like,
oh yeah. I did go look at the page for the sale, and I didn't even know that Lanasa was going to sell his building. You know, like
yeah.
Like,
all right,
I mean,
Brian, what's our next topic here? Let's just move on.
Well, it goes right in with the whole like censorship thing that's going on. It's like they will make allegations that, you know, like I've been Googling, you know, I Google stuff to find out what people are saying about our movie or about our book, so that I can go and I can join the chat and I can be like, oh yeah, I'd be glad to talk to you about it. You know, you want to know more? I'm here. You know, and when I do that, a couple months ago, I did that, and something came up on Reddit, and it was like, oh well, you know, that Griffith Morgan, he's really what's the word they use? Problematic.
Problematic.
Right?
Yeah,
it's not
that's
like
a good one.
Like
you
we
get
have
10 points for problematic, Griff.
I get 10 points for problematic, and they were like, oh yeah, I've read that too. He's the P word, you know, and it's like, well, why is he problematic? You know, and they're I just heard he's problematic, you know. It's so this goes right with the next thing of censorship if we're going to go there.
Well, we're specifically going to be talking about censorship on the OSR subreddit, right, and on Reddit.
Right.
I'm gonna confess something to you, which is that originally I had attempted to schedule Alexander Macris of Adventure Conquer King for this.
Yeah, but you got to cancel that guy. He's really bad news.
No, he's nice. And the thing is that the reason I wanted to get him was because the OSR subreddit has completely canceled him, right? Like you cannot post anything about Adventure Conqueror King, who was just at a very successful Kickstarter, right?
Right.
You can't talk about him. You can't talk about his games. It's completely blacklisted, right? And then I recall that you were also talking about the experience you had on the OSR Reddit. Now, Alex couldn't come tonight because he had a conflict of scheduling. Right. But he's probably going to be on one of our shows very soon, probably next month. But I wanted to hear what was your encounter with Reddit, and like, did you post there? And when you posted there, did you get attacked, or did they try to block you?
Right. Well, you know, I get attacked for a lot of things. I get attacked just because people won't agree with what's in the movie. I get attacked because I talk to you guys. When I went on there, it became pretty clear that there was some agenda going on there, and that whoever was moderating the group was anti people like you. And
I'd say that the OSR subreddit moderators are actually anti-OSR, right? The only OSR stuff they like is this woke entryist crap that nobody in the OSR actually plays.
Right. Well, I mean, it's bizarre. I go to the OSR or even the RPG areas, and I just see this like Darth of 5e stuff. I'm like, what is going on here? You know, like, you're not playing the games that are the OSR games. What are you doing in here? But yeah, I tried to post in there. When I first got on Reddit, I was trying to use it sort of as a marketing tool to reach out to people. I mean, you know, I'm a small business. I want to get out there and talk to people. I'm a gamer too, and I want to see what other gamers are doing and maybe check out other gamers, whatever, all of that. And my experience was that I posted some things, and I think it probably was in the OSR, and they just got yanked for, and they would yank it for like, you know, being like blatant marketing or something like that. And I was like, but
which you don't do for other guys, right? Like, it's very
well,
funny.
It seems really, yeah. I don't know what's the point. Where do you draw the line on what's marketing when you're talking about OSR, which is like
the person, I don't know what their pronouns are, who created Mothership and goes on there and starts talking about Mothership, and they're all like fawning, right? But then, you know, if you post something about Tonisborg, you're marketing, right? And so that has to be stopped.
Yeah, so that happened recently. I went on there. I don't even remember the specifics. I was just posting. I might have been posting the it was probably like the Tonisborg stuff we're trying to sell on our website, because we have remainder stock. We always have to overorder because we're a small company and things get lost in the mail, and we're responsible for keeping people happy, and we always fulfill on that stuff. So that means our costs are like 10% higher because we're getting 10% more product fabricated. And so, yeah, I just posted about that. Or it might have been about just the movie clips I've been putting on YouTube, because we were going to start sharing parts of Secrets of Blackmoor on YouTube. So I just posted about that. And I didn't know, I read the description of the site of the group. And if you go to look at the OSR group, there really isn't anything as far as like deep rules on like, don't do this, don't do that. Make sure to wash your hands, stuff like that.
It's arbitrary to the moderators.
And yeah, and so maybe hidden somewhere is some rule about like you have to, if you are doing an advertisement of any kind, then you must use Flare or whatever. And I don't even know how to use Reddit fully. I'm an idiot on there. Anyway.
So wait. So they're marketing that you have to spend money to market on their thing. Reddit is so ridiculous, and it's the perfect example of the inmates running the asylum, right? Yeah. I've been out of that entire scene for about 5 years because of that exact problem. It's too damn subjective, and you get these 5e fawners that want to be hip and want to use OSR. It's like the thing right now where I'm marketing a game, but it's 05R, right?
Right.
Whatever. But they're unfortunately at the top of the food chain, so
there's
they get
more
to
of them
decide.
than anything else.
And Griff, they're the reason the rules are very vague is so that they can play within the confines. I don't fault them. They're playing the game that they're in,
Well, I mean, it was like a week before that I posted my thing, and there was some discussion about Macris, and they were complaining, they were accusing him of, I hear these terms that I don't even know what they are, brigading, which I assume is like having like 50 of your friends go and like mob a discussion to either boost it or ruin it, which is like, well, gee, whenever I post anything on there, I get downvoted. Like you would not believe how much I get down. Like, if you want to go, I can go on to Reddit and post something in OSR right now, and I can say like, this is Griff. I like to play D&D. I could say that, and they'd show up and start downvoting me, and like within an hour.
That's what brigading
You should do it
is.
now. We'll see how long it takes.
Yeah, it's not even worth it.
Venger, I was wondering about if you have any stories about the OSR subreddit. Do they like you there?
Oh, they love Venger.
They banned me from posting. I could look at it and I can like upvote or downvote certain things, but I haven't been able to post on there for a couple of years because obviously I'm a Nazi. And
I
then also
I was trying to start there. Sorry to interrupt you. Was going to be like the anti-OSR group, because I got tired of dealing with their groups. You couldn't talk about the real D&D, and so I started this little thing, and I was going to post like, kind of like tasteless memes and things like that. just all kinds of fun stuff. Nothing targeting any individuals. We're civilized, right? But just have fun with D&D the way you should. And so yeah, you guys should come. Maybe we can get like that D&D group going on Reddit. Just as like
those sorts of subreddits will get shut down by the Reddit moderators, because the entire Reddit moderation team are the woke type, and they anyone complains about your group, they'll shut it down.
Oh,
yeah, I think we would make it maybe in 5 minutes into a session.
It's interesting because I have a lot to say on this, because I have like quantifiable evidence, to validate some of my claims. A lot of people complained when Elon Musk took over Twitter, and I was like, well, he's no more and no less evil than any other billionaire out there. They're all kind of like, I don't know, but we'll try this billionaire as the owner of Twitter, and we'll see what happens here. And he did do that thing where they have the Twitter files, and you can go look up all the articles on that and see what people were finding on that. And that was where a lot of stuff came out about people being shadow banned. And I I'm going to end up on a list just like you guys are because I talk to you guys, and because I really strongly believe in individual freedom. Because I'm a classical. I mean, I guess if anything, I'm a classical liberal. I don't really define myself as anything, but the individual freedom thing that comes from the Constitution is like really important. And so I got on some sort of list, and so somehow I got shadow banned. And for the first however many years I was there, until Elon Musk's crew got in there and started removing that code, I could not break 5,050 followers. It would literally, like, one day I'd be like 10 over, and the next day I'd come home and I would be back to 5,050 followers. And people were talking about, like, oh yeah, there's the unfollow bug.
Yeah.
And I mean, people, people used to talk about
that were unfollowed, that were following me, and then suddenly, they said I didn't unfollow, but somehow I'm not following you anymore. That's
wow, that's weird that the system would do that. And then what's even weirder is that I can, like, for 2 years, I'm looking at my follower count, and it's like it's going between 5,000 and 5,050. The minute they removed those shadow bans, boom, Griff is over 8,000 followers now. I don't even do anything to make anybody follow me. I just talk to people. I'm a guy that likes to talk about gaming like you guys. So, that's sort of concerning, because when you're, like what you're talking about with Reddit, I think you have like different categories of censorship. There's this sort of like there's the mob that runs around and call, you're a bad person, we're going to cancel you. And it's like, okay, cancel me, I don't care. And that's sort of on an individual level. You can't control that. People have the freedom to follow who they want and cancel who they want. And then you have, like, I don't know, a very bad place like Nazi Germany or something like that, or Stalinist Russia, where censorship is a real thing and people are being, not only are there.
Yeah, or the United States.
Maybe the United Kingdom too. I don't know. I haven't followed what's going on over there, but that's like government sanctioned censorship. But we're in this weird wishy-washy place, like what you're talking about with Reddit. If what you're saying is true, then you have like corporate censorship, and in
the States, the establishment has subcontracted censorship to private corporations. That's their deal. But anyways, Venger, you were going to tell us about your experience on Reddit. Let's hear it.
Okay. Yeah, I'm banned or heavily censored all over Reddit. It's not just the OSR. Like the RPG subreddit and things like that. I'll just post something. I'll message the mods first if I have to for self-promotion. And I mean, they all want you, all these places, especially on Reddit, want you to, like, contribute to their platform or their group or something like that.
They use that line with me too.
Yeah, and like Griff, I'm a small business, and I have limited time and funds and things like that. If I want to market something to, like, say 20 or 30 different places, that cater to the OSR or role-playing games, I don't have time to be like an active member at like 30 different places. Like posting, I would never have time for anything else. Like, I couldn't do another job or like spend time with my family or like anything. So that's just ridiculous right there. And I did ask some guy, I said, I'll give you a free PDF of something if you go to a couple subreddits for me that focus on either the OSR or just role-playing games in general, and post like an announcement of the Schultz X cards, and just say like, hey, these things exist, like, here's the link, check them out if you want, it's free. And he did that, and then they like shut him down, and I think he tried again after asking the mods like what's up, why'd you do that? Because at that point it's not self-promotion, because he's like not affiliated with me at all, so he's promoting it because he's just interested in it. And then they banned him, and as a reason they said we don't allow people that support Nazis or talk about their products. So, I mean, it's just like they have all the power and they are just going to make up all the crazy rules that they want and shut people like normal or center right or conservative or free-thinking people, just shut us down because we don't toe the line. And how can you not see how like garbage that is?
Yeah.
Even if it was the roles were reversed and it was like some extreme like right-wing ideology driving it, like we should all be fighting against that too. You know, we just all want to play games. It's just you can't just be neutral and talk about gaming and just play and forget about all the politics and all the social stuff, the culture. You can't do that anymore because you have to like fight back because otherwise they'll just run all over you.
Well, it's not even a right and a left thing, in particular with the Reddit people. And this is what helped me make my decision to really hastily exit Reddit. It's if you're not on message with whoever is the king of their little puddle of the subreddit, you don't have a voice. And it's very interesting that the same, and I'm not knocking these systems, good for them. If they figured out how to work Reddit for their marketing, great. But it's the same 10 to 15 games, designers, developers, or systems that just keep churning through there. So I often joke that if Twitter is the cesspool of the internet, Reddit is the sewage treatment plant. It's the final destination for all of the shit because it just collects there. And if you are in any sort of way out of step with what that little micro group thinks, you're out.
Imagine all the butt kissing that goes on in places like that. When you're not, if you actually like work there for any period of time, you'd be like, oh my God, this designer is so great and you're so awesome. And it's like, oh my God, doesn't that just make you sick to your stomach? To like,
I'm just pointing at the comments.
The OSR subreddit has been captured by a small group of left wing. So those guys can say anything and everybody else can't say anything. Now, I'm not banned from the OSR subreddit, but that's only because I when I first started checking it out, I immediately realized what it was going to be like. And so I said, I'm not even going to waste my time trying to post in this particular media, you know, because it's just not useful. But what I have experienced is that, you know, once in a while, somebody who's a fan of mine might post something there, you know, when they're like doing some thread on, you know, well, what's a good game to play in a non-Western culture? And they say, oh, Arrows of Indra. And then you'll get, you know, that guy will get downvoted and people will start making comments. And once in the blue moon, I make a post, which is usually only if I happen to discover or someone points out that someone said something on the OSR subreddit that's a blatant lie about me, right? And so then I'll go in and make a post refuting that, and of course it'll get downvoted like crazy until people can't see it either, right? So it's just this ridiculous, useless. It's absolutely useless as any kind of means of communication. It's just a propaganda channel.
Right, it is. I mean, you see all that traffic, and then or you see their raw numbers. I actually don't think the traffic is that big as they claim, but you see all those raw numbers, like, oh, this subreddit has like 95,000 members, and you're like, oh, whoa, if like just 2% of those people like saw my stuff and then half of those people like downloaded something, you know, that's real progress. But
only a
you get like you get 15 or 20 people that are on there all the time, and everybody else, they're just on the rolls, but they don't even like check in.
Yeah, well, a ton of those are people who left when they realized it was useless, right? So,
or they're bots.
Yeah, it's some bots too, surely. Yeah.
Well, I mean, I think it's interesting that you're saying that the company itself is like sort of following an agenda and pushing an agenda. Because if that's the case, then, you know, like.
Oh, it absolutely is. There's been articles written about how the moderation staff at Reddit, or not staff, because most of them are volunteers, right? But that it's the same thing as what's happened with Wikipedia, right? The woke left realized that they had an opportunity there to capture and control the narrative. And so, you know, like the editors of Wikipedia or the mods in Reddit at all levels, from the top, you know, the overall administrators to the mods of almost all of the subreddits have this political agenda, and so they'll promote moderators who are on board with that agenda, and anybody who isn't going to last very long,
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, lately I've been seeing interesting articles in the New York Times by editorials by, I think the name is Paula Pauls. You should go look at those. Those are really interesting because there was one article where she talked about the left and how confused the left is because you've got Democrats and you've got, I mean, like the word liberal became sort of a dirty word and people didn't want to be called a liberal. So they're like, I'm a leftist. And then there's the woke left or and they're like, well, I don't like the term woke because it's pejorative. I like to be called a progressive leftist. And then she went through sort of like what the two sides represent. And it was like, yeah, the classical liberal, the freedom, individual rights and protection of, oh, there we go. Yeah. Oh, it's Pamela Paul. That's what it is. I mean, I don't remember every detail, but she was basically like saying like, these two groups are actually extremely at odds. And so the left is becoming really divided, which is kind of like what we watched the Republican, the right wing has kind of done that too, because there's a difference between like a toe the line Republican and maybe a libertarian. They're not going to agree on everything. So I don't know. I just thought I'd throw that out there. There's some really interesting articles out there to read by Pamela Paul.
On the right, there are groups that are divided, right? So there's on the one hand, you have the establishment Republicans, which are mostly politicians, right, and some corporate shills, and then you have the kind of the Trump Republicans, and you have the Libertarian Republicans. And those last two tend to agree on more things than they disagree, but they have the opposition to the fact that the Republican Party itself is being run by people who hate everybody else in the Republican Party.
Right.
But the left in the United States is, at this point, it's almost entirely controlled by the so-called progressive woke left, and it's become at this point like
they were talking panderverse here.
Actually, liberal
to that.
Yeah, but actual liberal leftists, like ones that are like classical liberals, they hardly exist anymore. They're like white rhinos, right? Like you've got Bill Maher, he could maybe be called a classical liberal, but the fact that he's being canceled by the left proves just how isolated those guys are. There's like hardly any of them left in the world, Well,
the fact that you've got somebody like John Cleese, right, being lambasted by the supposed left, and I think that he's an incredibly intelligent, wonderful person. What?
Cleese just started a new web series, and they're trying to cancel it.
Right. I've got to say, I just went to a John Cleese show locally here in my hometown, and it was at not a major theater. It was at like a second tier theater, which is fine. I wanted that because it was a more intimate show, and there was, some Q&A, and there was some bits, and there was some what you would expect from John Cleese. But in true John Cleese fashion, he didn't hold back against anybody. And there was a segment, and not a small segment, easily 1 out of 5, that left that show because it wasn't just Monty Python and bashing the right wing. Right. He took shots at everybody for everything, which is why you go to see John Cleese.
Right.
But there were people that walked out of that show and were, stereotypical skittle-haired sparkle trolls. I would assume if they played D&D, they would be a sparkle troll. We'll just call them a skittle hair for this. And they were appalled at some of the things that Cleese said. And Cleese is far from a conservative.
Yeah.
Most of the guys that are still publicly visible as classical liberals are comedians, and that's because they realize that they have no career if they have to follow the rules of wokeism, right? Like woke comedians are famously unfunny, and so the guys that actually want to be funny, and most of them, frankly, are boomers, right? They're aging liberals from that have the kind of values of the 1960s American liberal or UK liberal, but they, again, they're a species in threat of extinction. So in the comments, Mac said, "Is there a good alternative to Reddit?" Well, you could say something like Twitter or something like that, but the thing is, Twitter what it doesn't have is the ability to form, long ongoing threads that are easy to find. But if I was going to propose something, I'd say check out the RPG site. The RPG site is a forum where you do have free speech and where there's you can actually have very lengthy threads about subjects and that they're easy to later search for.
Well, yeah, I mean, the option, that's kind of, maybe that is a question, is like, do you have options? That's why I suggested earlier, like, I started a Reddit, or we could start a whole new Reddit group on Reddit and just do it as an experiment. And like, the four of us could go there. We could invite the whole group there that's watching, and we could try to have a Reddit, we could call it Real Old School or something like that. Just start a Reddit group.
Well, people have tried stuff like that, and it's gotten shut down, right?
Well, we can do it as an experiment, and we log everything that's going on just as an interesting experiment, and God, Venger's fingers look terrifying when he types.
Those are tentacles. They're tentacles. But you know what? We need a casino to actually set odds on how long it will last, because I want to lay some bets, and I'm taking the under. I am taking the under if it's Reddit. I'm
gonna go a year at least. I'm gonna go a year.
Oh, no way. No way.
I know, but if I make it a year, bingo.
Fair enough. Fair enough.
No, I mean, that is, I don't know. It's interesting because at first I thought it was just the reason I was being harassed was because I'm Griff. Because I already have, anytime you get a little bit well known on the internet, you're going to get some blowback from people that just like to harass people that have followers, right?
Yep.
I mean, there were those articles. I remember reading articles about Twitter, like before I even got on it, like some young girl got popular on there, and then she said something and everybody went after her. And like within a day, she had like 500,000 responses that were all like, really negative, like go do bad things to yourself or get out of here, you're terrible. And this is like a girl that was like maybe 16, and she probably had a nervous breakdown because she had no preparation for dealing with that kind of like fame and negative attention. So anyway, I'm babbling, but there is that reality. So I wasn't sure if my experience on Reddit was just because I've had people like, I don't know, have you gone to Dragon's Foot? Have you tried to post anything on Dragon's Foot?
I have occasionally.
Oh God, they'll come after you like they're like piranhas,
Usually, what happens to me if I post on Dragon's Foot is just really low. I would say just tepid engagement. I don't really have people going after me, but I don't have people like posting like, "Oh yeah, that's cool. Like, tell me more," or "Let's discuss it." Every once in a while, if it's some like design thing that I'm working on,
well, they try to
get, like feedback on. But,
yeah, they try to provoke you. They troll you, and they try to provoke you into saying something bad, so that then the mods will delete your account.
That's what happened to.
What I did was
RPG Pub.
I mean, do you know about computer programming? What like different stacks are? There's like, what is it called? Like FIFO and LIFO, like last in, first out, or first in, first out. So I came up with my own. I realized that if I want to keep attention on Dragon's Foot, all I need is for people to be posting to my discussion. And so I would just, I call it tickle the trolls. And so it was the bubble up, what was it? Bubble up troll theory, which is BUTT, which is my version of FIFO and LIFO, which is if you just respond to the trolls, but you don't say anything mean enough that the mods will do anything, then the mods come back and they respond back to you. And your thing is constantly being agitated so that the aggregator, it's not even an aggregator, it's just last thing that was posted to goes to the top of the stack. It's just a really simple stack. And so I used bubble up troll theory, the BUTT, to keep my discussion at the top of the stack on Dragon's Foot for like 3 days. And I just thought it was hilarious because it was like the trolls thought they were like really like, and I was like, no, I'm using you because I can leave a comment to each one of you trolls individually as a reply, and I can leave for 6 or 8 hours, and then I come back and you've all replied, and I'm constantly at the top of the discussion, and you're not talking about anything except for how much you hate me. And
who could just like people are like, who could hate Venger? Like, I'm asking, who could hate Griff? I mean, you're not. I mean, I don't know. If you put a gun to my head and like, what do you hate about Griff?
I was going to respond, but it's like we're in a public.
I mean, like, I can't think of anything.
I do think
he's just a nice guy, and like he wants to engage and learn more about the hobby, and he
drinks
cool
scotch.
dude.
He likes to drink really strong coffee.
Yeah, that's the worst thing you can say about you.
Venger, those are two different questions, though, because I do think you do say things that are intentionally controversial. I don't think Griff really does.
Yeah, that's true. People say that about me, and I question it. I'm like, am I that nice? But I think Griff is like legit nice because he doesn't say anything. He's not like a troll or like shit posting or anything like that.
I like that brigading accusation. I don't see that except for from, I hate to say the other side, because I don't even like to talk. I don't like to declare my politics publicly because I make games, I make movies, I go into the voting booth, I vote for who I want to vote for, and it's none of your business, you know.
And that's the way it should be. I mean, that's the way it was.
Yeah, I was going to say, even 20 years ago, that's the way it was. And then there was this dynamic shift. And now...
even 15 years ago.
Your identity is now directly tied to what you publicly portray for political views on anything. It's bullshit. Yeah. It's bullshit. Yeah. You can make a great game and have the most abstract, weird leftist politics as long as you're doing a game, you're not inserting it out there, and you're keeping it to yourself. Great. It's when you put it out there. Then you open yourself up for attack.
I mean, right? I get in trouble because I will say that if you say that these games are dangerous and we have to use like safety devices and cards and lists and stuff, and I'm like, no, if you feel like if you pick up a comic book that you find on the sidewalk that's like some kid's comic book and you read that, that's about as dangerous as my D&D game gets. We don't need a list or an X card. And if you need that, I'm really like, you really need to talk to your counselor or your therapist or somebody or scream at your parents for not preparing you for the real world. Because when you step out your door, it's a dangerous place.
I was just commenting, somebody pointed out that Black Lodge Games just did a video on safety tools that was quite good, and I agree, it was quite good. I had done a similar video earlier this year called The Quiet Tantrum, where I was talking about safety tools, and I made that exact point that you've just made, that basically anyone who is actually traumatized that they need to have safety tools probably shouldn't be playing RPGs, and they probably should be in some kind of therapy or institutionalized, you know?
Yeah, I mean,
the whole thing is a fake. It's a setup to allow people to control the hobby rather than anything to do with traumatized people, you know?
Yeah, when you talk about that, you see my face is kind of, I get the whole safety tool thing and all that, it just enrages me. Like, my next book is going to be called The Mysteries of Spiral Keep. And the whole focus is to create a role-playing game that's like terrifying, you know, or it's not like Call of Cthulhu though. It's like in the old days when you made a dungeon, there was always like a temple with like an altar, and they were sacrificing naked women on it or whatever, you know, and there were things that would and all this terrifying stuff, and tentacles. We got to have tentacles. I mean, that's important. I mean, you look at original D&D. What are the most popular monsters? You got the thing with too many eyes, and you got the calamari face guy with the tentacles, right? And somehow these people have shown up and been like, ooh, like they don't mind that because that seems normal to them, and so they select other things that are bad. What?
They've cutified it, right? It's cute now. Yeah. They have the plushy beholder, and you know, oh, he's so cute. Oh, look, it's funny too. That beholder's gonna make me a latte.
With soy milk, right?
Our next topic, right? Because I think that Ryan, you've just touched on something very interesting there. That when it comes to like official D&D and whatnot, they want to take everything and either turn it into something cutesy poo and oh my god so random, or they want to make it ugly, right? So the one thing you can't have is either something that's serious or that's beautiful, right? It has to be either ugly or silly, you know?
Yeah.
I think that's a very good point. We'll wait for Venger to come back. I hope he's coming back. I don't know he's probably got some emergency with
it was
one
like
of his
that as his convention. You know, you'd be in the middle of a game and he just disappeared. Where'd Venger go? I don't know. I think he
had to tuck in child number 72 right now. That's all. So.
Well, no, I mean, this is all really. I wish we had more time. I'm already like, oh man, we're like got like 9 minutes left because we're hitting on some interesting stuff and we haven't even really begun to really drill down into it. Because I think that I find it really disturbing, like what you're saying about Reddit possibly being like, it's sort of like institutional stupidism. So if Reddit has institutional stupid, what am I doing there using their product? Like I shouldn't even be there.
Go elsewhere, you know, go somewhere where you can speak freely.
Yeah. Well, I use it mostly for shit posting now. And there's some really awesome shit post forums on there. And I just go there and talk crap about stupid things. Because I can't do any marketing.
Let's move on to the next topic, and I hope you have those images queued up in order here. So I wanted to point out to people that just hold it on that image, Ryan. So if you remember Planescape, right? Planescape had these different factions, and this is the image in the second edition of Planescape of the Sensates, which was basically a faction of sensualists that this was the image of this is the person. In the Planescape setting in second edition that would want to have sex with you, because they're a nymphomaniac. Let's put it that way. Let's put it in the most basic form possible.
That's kind of boring.
This is the second edition image of what you have waiting to want to make sweet love to you in the city of sigils, right? And now let's look at what the 5th edition version of the Sensate is. There you go. So this is what wants to make love to you in 5th edition.
My punk rock.
So, hang on. I think this is a perfect example.
You gotta burn the hippies.
No, hang on. Let me finish talking here. This is the perfect example of how the woke movement is constantly trying to anything that doesn't want to make silly and stupid and childish, they want to make into something ugly and intentionally unattractive as the idea of destroying the Western aesthetic value, right? Because to them the ideal, the physical and ideal of beauty in our culture is to them offensive, right? And so they want to intentionally uglify things.
I would disagree. I just think they don't have any creativity because when I look at that image, what I'm really thinking is that looks like those are the burners that go to like the Burning Man thing. It just looks like a bunch of people that like to go do acid in the desert and have sex.
It looks like people that are in Antifa, right? Everybody's in Antifa is hideously ugly, right? It's these people that are the rejects of society now trying to put themselves in control of society and trying to force you to pretend that they're beautiful, right? To try to force you to pretend that this is an image of beauty, right? It's like when you have like this morbidly obese woman becoming Miss America or whatever,
I used to live in a town that is very wealthy and very left wing, so and we're just invaded by these New York Grateful Dead fans and Bob Marley fans, but they all dressed like they all looked like hippies, but they all had like mommy and daddy's credit card. We used to call them the Trustafarians.
Yeah.
So when I see this, I just see a Trustafarian. I mean, this is a term that comes from like the 80s, but I don't know. I mean, I don't disagree with you, but I also would add that just is not very creative or interesting,
Well, I agree.
If you see that, you want to buy that.
Interesting, but
if that was on the cover of a game book, would you be like, "Ooh, I'm going to get that one"?
But I think it's absolutely intentional, right? Like one of the purposes of the postmodernist movement is to say, well, what we have to do is forcibly change the narrative of everything that is considered a value in Western culture, right? And so they want to replace beauty with ugliness. That's part of the agenda, and they use inclusion as the excuse for that.
I don't know. That's too deep for me, man. I'm just like, I don't know. I know what looks stupid, and that looks stupid.
Victoria's Secret, right? Victoria's Secret catalogs were the wank material of every teenage boy in the 1990s, right? And why? It was they had these gorgeous models in lingerie, right? And if you look at the 2022 Victoria's Secret pictures now, it's these hideous fat women, right? Because why they're celebrating diversity, right? Celebrating diversity means you're destroying whatever is normative, and that's
some aren't even women. So
that's also true. Yes.
Yeah, I mean that's that whole imposition. It's not market driven in a way,
right.
But
it's ideology driven.
Agenda now in the market, right? Because it also that comes with the explicit demand that you have to pretend that this is a beautiful picture, right? That this is somebody that is attractive, right? And if you don't, you get canceled for it, right?
Yeah. Well, yeah. We've all been canceled, so we're safe now. Actually, I think half the people that watch your show are people that. What's that?
That Surly Unicorn says it's about the absolute deconstruction of society. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
That's
I mean, I'm kind of on the cusp of that because I do like certain kinds of modern art, but I find we're going to talk about art because we're talking about aesthetics. Conceptual art, I think, is just a bunch of bullshit where you try to like you're basically writing an essay about what you think a piece of art should be without making the art, and it's garbage. So I guess I would agree because I think that art should have some sort of emotional response, and if you just I don't know. That's a whole other hour of discussing if we talk about aesthetics and art. But I don't know.
It recently came out that postmodernist art in the 1950s and 60s was very heavily promoted by groups that were actually operating as kind of Soviet agents in the West. Part of an effort to try to destabilize Western society, right? Like Jackson Pollock and shit like that, was promoted to replace, let's say, the traditional kind of American art style, as a specific intention of trying to make Western society less stable by the Soviet Union, right? And that actually a lot of what is nowadays the woke virus. It started because of these Soviet plants in the universities, in art, in the UK. Yeah. Several of the spies that were actively working for the Soviet Union were not in MI6. There were a lot of them in MI6, but there was also a lot of them that were in the art institutes, and the guy that curated the art for the Queen was a Soviet spy. They were very intentionally trying. They created this as a secret weapon to try to damage the unity of the West. And now the Soviet Union is long gone, but the virus is still there, spreading everywhere,
So that sounds a little paranoid for you guys.
Whether it was but
the data is there, right? We know now that these guys were funding.
The data is there that they were what they were, but the data of what their results were, they tried a lot of things. Sorry to interrupt you, Ryan.
No, I had a tangential question that just popped in there. Is this perhaps part of the contributing factor where we see so much pushback against AI art? Because AI art is using very quantified, objective terms to describe the art. It's available to anyone to create. So it's not this ivory tower thing anymore where we end up with, something like this as a beautiful person, wherein I can just go and generate my own version of a beautiful person and then tweak it to meet my needs. So I don't know. It's just something that popped in there because, I'm always getting my ass tanned because I don't have a problem with AI art. It's a tool. And,
I have big problems with it, but that would be a whole other show.
Sure.
I think that AI art should be destroyed, but I also think that all of the stuff, all of the computer apps that are hidden inside the little tiny programs and algorithms that are hidden inside the internet that spy on everything you do and present you with ads related to the latest things you even talked about in in a private chat on Facebook. Like you can chat about salami in a private chat. And
even in your own home,
salami, or even in your own home, because your
around the kitchen table. You know, I'll mention like something about asparagus.
Well, you're always talking about salami, actually, right? But anyway,
yeah, I'll see an ad for that. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, but no. So I mean, that's a whole other discussion. So I think that you're going down a really big slippery slope when you start letting computers decide for you, and they're altering your consciousness. I mean, even that's the problem with the social media.
Hang on, because first of all, let me point out one thing, that on whether or not, I'm sure that there's people on the chat that agree with you or that disagree with you, right? But
if they disagree with me, they should be burned.
But the reality of it, Griff, is that you know, what you're saying is similar to, like, you know, when the printing press was created
it's not the same. We're not talking about the same technology, Pundit. A printing press is not altering your consciousness. It's providing you with a faster way of doing something that's been done for hundreds of years.
That once a technology appears, right, there's always going to be a group that's gonna be disadvantaged by it. So the scriptoriums, the monks who made illustrated manuscripts.
You're mixing apples and oranges on these arguments. This is not the same argument. We're talking about people using. We're talking about people using technology to make decisions upon what you ingest, what you ingest with your consciousness.
It's a question of how far is too far.
The second point, though, the first point stands that you can't put the genie back in the bottle, right? But my second point is that actually the way that AI art works in practice, let's say for somebody like the Red Room, who use a lot of AI art in their games, is that they input the parameters of what they want created, right? And so you can put in, you know,
can put the genie back in the bottle. You could create an alternative internet that just sits on top of the internet, and you can go there, and you don't have to look at the bullshit that's being produced by Google, and you don't have to be subjected to the advertisements that Google decides are things that you want.
Yeah, you can personally make choices
on an individual basis.
But you probably find other people that are willing to do that. I mean, I do that on the Plato system.
Right, like that's not going to be stopped.
From an infrastructure
other people are still going to use AI art, even if you choose not to.
Right. The point is that it's not that you know, the AI art isn't random. It's something that the person who's going to make a piece of AI art is putting in a bunch of search inputs for the AI, right? So they say, well, I want something in the style of the Renaissance masters, and you have to
it doesn't go look at the style of it. It goes and steals the style of the Renaissance masters.
Right? So it's actually the input of the user that determines what the art is, what the general style of the art is going to look like.
Well, because the users might be, I think that users often they're gonna input information, and that information is going into like a program that aggregates what their desires are based on really vague terms. And so that aggregator is going to go like, ooh, I mean, it's not even thinking. That's the thing. These things are not thinking. These are just programs. So the program data mines the sentences that are being used to describe this thing and looks for words that are like keywords, basically, and it assembles a profile of what this person must want. And so then they assemble this thing and they spit it back out at the person.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but
I'm not done yet.
Okay,
that's really important to my point.
I want next. Okay, I'm putting that quarter right there.
Let me just complete what I'm saying. People are actually much more flexible and much more malleable than they think they are. And so you may think you have an image in your head of what you want, and so you go to do it, and it spits out an image, and you go, that looks kind of like what I wanted. And so either you're going to be like, it's going to be so off that you're going to say, no, I want something else. Or it's close enough that it might even erase what you had in your mind as an image before you saw that. It'll just replace it. And so you've got these machines that are making things for you. These are not even conscious machines. They're making things for you and giving them to you, and you're deciding that's what I wanted in the first place. And you may not have wanted that even in the first place. I think this stuff is really like, people, it's not just about the fact that the art isn't coming from an artist. It's about the fact that you've got programs deciding things for you, and they're putting these things in your head and altering your consciousness. And they were doing this on Facebook when they did all those experiments. It's documented where they would feed somebody negative posts and see what happened. And I believe they had a certain number of people that were in that little test group that were being fed depressing negative things that committed suicide because they were maybe they were a little volatile or very vulnerable, but they were fed these things by this computer program that was created by people working for a corporation. Got to watch out for this stuff, because this is like something out of a 1970s sci-fi dystopia, but we're living it. You may say what you want now.
I don't deny that there's a dark side to algorithms. I mean, look at TikTok and Osama bin Laden, right?
Yeah. What were you going to say, Venger?
Okay, your turn.
Is it Venger or Venger? I like Venger better, but maybe it's Venger.
I use Venger, but I have friends and supporters and fans that say Venger, so I actually don't care what people use. But if I'm talking about myself, I say Venger. That's
okay. When we were at Venger,
the D&D cartoon.
Okay, because I screamed Mr. Senor Banana at you, and you didn't respond at VengerCon, and so I don't know. Anyway, go on. It's dumb joke.
What you were saying about altering consciousness, to a lesser degree, you can go back to like the Gutenberg Bible, and the fact that was readily available, or more so than like monks like handwriting it out.
Right.
I mean, that alters consciousness too. Maybe not to the degree of like computers and algorithms and social media today, but I mean, it's still on that ladder. And the second thing is, if it's truly artificial intelligence and not just exaggeration or misnomer, that means that there has to be some sort of independent thought happening with the machines, right? Otherwise, it's technically not artificial intelligence. It's just a handy art masher.
It's an art masher. It's not intelligent. It's not conscious. It can't have its own thoughts.
Right, and that's
is
why
that real?
it's a tool.
If I can
everyone's calling artificial intelligence, like AI, are they using that falsely, or are you guys kind of downplaying?
They kind of are using it falsely, to be fair, right? Because what it really is a very clever kind of algorithm, a search algorithm, right? And that can then generate new material based on the parameters of that search. But
that's independent, though.
Esoterically speaking, right? I've always said that the internet is like a technological manifestation of the astral plane, right? And it reflects human consciousness.
Right.
And in that same sense, because we acknowledge, Griff just said it, that the AI can't itself create something entirely original. Everything it creates has to be in some way inspired by art that already exists, that was made by human hands. In that sense, what AI art is really doing is a reflection of the collective human consciousness anyways,
And Venger, as far as the intelligence part of it, it's not that it's thinking or generating this art from a creative process. The intelligence end of the artificial intelligence that's tacked on in what we think of when we think of AIs now is it has its ability to append its core code. So it takes what it has learned and it can correct its core code by that. Now, Griff, you're right. If I'm using some
bits, though, we're not thinking.
No, yeah, right. You're still twiddling bits, and that's why it's a tool, right? And if I'm using a corpo AI, then you're absolutely right. Someone else is there. But with my stuff, I built this AI. I gave it the data sets. I curated the art that went into it as samples.
Are you using an AI on your own computer?
Yes. It's on a server that's about 20 yards that way, but it is a self-curated set, and people have said, Ryan, how do you get your AI to be A, so consistent, and B, look like the same person generated this art? And that's because of how it's used. So yeah, if I am a 16-year-old kid or some leprechaun just typing into an AI, I want a pretty girl. Yes, I'm going to get this vision. But with my model that I put a lot of time into, I can get very fine-tuned results. And it is an artistic tool for me because I don't have the skills in these hands. But I had the skills up here to produce the results that I was looking for. So
back in the 70s, we had a program. I remember playing this on a computer. It was like 21 questions, and the computer would be like, okay, think of something, and then I'll guess what it is. And the computers would start, and it would say, is it bigger than a bread box? You know, is it green? Is it? And all it was this giant tree. It wasn't.
Yeah, it wasn't tree. Yeah.
But if you didn't understand how programming worked, you'd be mystified, because it would be like, you know, you probably didn't think of anything really unique. It would just be like, oh my God, it guessed that I was thinking of a jar of peanut butter. How did it do that? You know, and then if it didn't guess what it was, it would be like, oh, you win. How is this different from the other, you know, from one of these, what I thought it was? And so, you know, it'd be like, how is, I don't know, whatever. And so you would enter another tree branch, right? And that would go into the database. And so, I mean, you're kind of dealing with the same sort of thing where, like, you know, it's a lot more sophisticated. Computing is a lot faster, but it is not, I mean, I understand what you're saying about what it's doing, because I have done programming, you know.
Slightly redirect the conversation. Most of us are old enough to remember a lot of this. So the thing is, the oligarchy is always against anything that democratizes people's ability to access information or to produce information. Right. And so you'll remember that, you know, when file sharing first started happening on the internet, you know, Napster and all that, the recording companies went nuts and tried to pass laws and tried to find ways to restrict it, because they saw
hurting them a lot
of their business, right? Yeah. You saw when social media started to become big, and especially things like YouTube, you know, you have the mainstream media trying to shut down their potential competitors in the form of citizen journalists on YouTube, with things like Rebel News or the Daily Wire or whatever, you know. And this is another case. And so, like, the one issue though that is I think a real issue is to be concerned about the fact that a lot of the AI that's being used is corporate controlled AI, you know.
Right. That's it.
The interesting thing that's going to happen is that you're going to see some of the people that are, you know, like whatever, Google is pro AI, right? Why? Because they own the biggest AI, right? But I think that once you get to the point where you can have like really good AI producing things that are you know, open source and that are like, you know, that are not controlled by corporate interests, all of a sudden a bunch of these guys go, oh no, this is dangerous now. You know, like, just watch, that's going to happen, you know.
Oh yeah, you got the reverse action of like, we can't control how this is being monetized, and it's going to dig into our monetizing.
Then they're going to suddenly be against it. You'll see.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I see like the Red Room. I think they reuse computer art on their stuff, and some of it's kind of cool. Some of it's hilarious. Like, there's one image. I did a promo for them, and one of the images, I'm like, that guy looks like Lou Reed. You know, like. Yeah.
Well, they do that on purpose, right? But that's the thing. If you know how, like, 'cause you have to kind of, I mean, I don't know anything about how to do this, right? But fortunately, my publishers are the ones that do all the art. And so far as I know, none of them have used AI. But I said that if they wanted to, they could. But if you just a regular schlub and you try to put something in for AI, you're going to get some pretty bad results. And you know, you have to kind of learn the tricks of how to prompt correctly. It's garbage in, garbage out, right? So if you can figure out how to input it, you can create stuff that ends up looking really good. But if you just like type in anything, and you, like, even WotC did this with one of their books, right, where they claimed that they're against AI art, but then they actually used AI art in some of their products, and then that caused a big scandal. And it was so obvious which ones were the AI art pieces, because it was bad art, you know.
Oh, I thought it was going to be because it was like,
yeah, it was
a million fingers going every which way.
See where the mistakes in the AI happened, right? Like, AI is still very primitive, to the point that it's basically just like, you know, up until very recently, at least, it's been still like Rob Liefeld art, right? You can't draw hands and feet, you know? So like, right. That's how you instantly spot. It's either AI or drawn by Rob Liefeld. You know?
But Griff, you know, it does come down to the skill of the user that's using it. Who's your favorite celebrity? Just throw a celebrity at me right now.
Celebrity?
Yeah.
I don't know any celebrities because I don't pay
Belle
attention
Delphine.
Belle give me
Oh,
a
yeah, they're
celebrity
Belle
that's
Delphine,
not
yeah.
going to get the stream canceled, Venger.
No, I want to cancel. Cancel.
All right, Belle Delphine. I'll be back in a few minutes.
Oh, I was going to suggest somebody else. But
we're about to have Belle Delphine guest star on the Inappropriate Characters.
Do like Ingrid Bergman. Ingrid Bergman. Don't do Belle Delphine. Do Ingrid Bergman.
That would at least be classy.
I'm going to have to cover my face because Belle Delphine does naughty things now.
Give the Venger what he wants.
No, I mean, we kind of, the problem is we've deviated from the original subject of the show. But
I want to see tentacles.
Maybe what we should dive into here is the our shilling period of the evening, because otherwise Benja's
oh yeah, you can shill. Well, he's got to like put my slides up for me because I sent him some images of things.
Well, then I guess you're going to go first, and Belle Delphine's just going to have to wait then. So
all right, let's do shill.
Let's do some shilling here.
All right.
Griff, you are up first, my friend.
All right. So yeah, we have a new YouTube channel.
Oh yeah, I was going to mention that. Sorry.
Yeah, we wanted to do this a long time ago, and that's a long story, so I won't go into it. We finally have a channel. We're going to start out by putting up a bunch of chapters of The Secrets of Blackmoor movie because YouTube is kind of a great marketing platform. And so if you know anybody that hasn't seen the movie, like send them a link to our YouTube channel, The Informal Game, and get them to watch a little bit of it and see it, if they want to watch the whole movie. It's really cheap on Amazon right now. I think it's like $3 or $4. It's like nothing, So we're doing that, and that's kind of cool. We've got 3 sections up. Another section is going to drop Wednesday before Thanksgiving. Because of Thanksgiving, we're going to put it up early. And we put it up in the evening, and I hop in there, and Chris hops in there, which most of you don't actually get to have a lot of contact with Chris, my co-director, and probably don't even know what he looks like because he's kind of mysterious and behind the scenes. But, it's just a short section, but usually we're in there early, and we just talk crap with people, just like this show, And we're just doing that weekly till we do about an hour of the movie will be up there. Just a little bit over an hour because we want to let Wesley talk a little bit about Brownstein. And then next slide. Boop. The Lost Dungeons of Tonisborg is our book, and it is, we kind of refer to it as the seminal guidebook to OSR style. I hate the term OSR. I just want to especially since these idiots who censor people and don't even do what OSR is, use the term. I don't even want to call it OSR, but we call it traditional role playing. I would say that it's fantasy role playing. That's what they call it in the Holmes book. Fantasy role playing. It's just a guidebook to how to do fantasy role playing with one of the very oldest dungeons ever created in the history of role playing games. And it has cool maps in there, and it has its own set of rules that are based on pre-publication of D&D rules. So they've got some interesting ideas that Dan Bogg has regarding that. The whole thing is like a historical look into time because you learn how to play in the old way, and you get to use some old rules to play in the old way.
Hang on, if I can jump in here for 1 second, Griff, I just wanted to comment to everybody that this is a fantastic product. And I don't know if you're aware, Griff, but I've just started a couple of weeks ago running Tonisborg Dungeon, and I'm using the rules in the book, right? And my players too. And they're absolutely fascinated by it because there's, those original rules that were, I guess, a recreation of how it was being done in Arneson's table are really fascinating because there's parts that are obviously the same as what would later evolve into D&D, and then there's some parts that are different, and it's just fantastic. My players are having a great time, and of course the dungeon is really interesting. So sorry, but I just wanted to hype you up.
I'm glad to hear you're using it because I use
it. Loving it.
I use it, and I had to it actually kind of made me have to add things to my play style in order to deal with things like, I don't know, there are just things that are not in the rules, and they're not going to be in your 5e rules either, where you need to add some things into how you're adjudicating, or how, it doesn't have to be a rule, but you really have to think about how you're adjudicating things. And some of the encounters in there, I really personalize it a lot, you know, like it's just a template. You just go in, and if you don't really know what's going on in one of the rooms, the description isn't good enough, just replace the monster, replace the treasure, just do your own thing. Or a hallway area is just too boring, draw some traps in there, or, you know, or put some, I mean, it's whatever you want it to be. Like I think that there's a whole thing now where you're supposed to play the thing exactly the way the company sells it to you, you know, everything's like,
old school.
What's that?
That's not old school. In old school, nobody did it the way it was, yeah?
Yeah, it's got to be seat of your pants, and you got to personalize it because there's a chance your buddy has it too. I ran Greg Svensson, who designed the dungeon, through Tonisborg, and he ended up in places that he had no clue about because I invented, like my stairwells, I put sub-levels between levels on my dungeon, and they ended up in a sub-level, and the curtains were made out of living zombie skin and stuff, and like knee-deep water. And at a certain point, he was like, this is really bad. It was right after they had like this animated skeleton, just like the forearm hanging on a rope from the ceiling. And the whole party was like, we got to get out of here. This is weird. And it's going to get bad. So they left. But sorry, I'm interrupting you and digressing. But yeah, we got that book. It's kind of a cool book, and you can get it anywhere. I mean, just go to if you have Amazon, use Amazon. If you have Barnes and Noble, use that. If you got Walmart, go to your Walmart. I mean, it's like 2 clicks. Click for that, click to buy, and it's a cheap book.
Excellent.
And then on our website, we do have remaining stock. I forgot to get an image of the red hardbound book, but because we have to over order for our Kickstarters, we always end up with remainder stock. And so we had a box full of hardcover books that have red fabric covers and gold leaf, and yeah, one of those in red. You know, that purple one you got there probably sells for over $500 on eBay now.
Oh,
because there's only like like 170 of those or something like that, or maybe 130 of those and 70 teals, I think is what it is. They're like, and we're done printing those. That's first edition, first printing, and they're done, and they're selling on eBay for a fortune. The black covers were selling for like $3,000. 2 have sold on eBay for $3,000.
Holy shit!
Yeah, they're like, I don't know. It's kind of weird having a book that people want that much, but anyway, and we're selling the remainder stock of the red covers, and you can go to eBay and you can look it up, you know, Lost Dungeons Tonisborg, and go into the history of what they've sold for, and the red covers are selling for like about $250, and we're selling them for $150. So you could buy it, and you could turn around and sell it on eBay in a month and make money off of it if you want, if you're that kind of person. But what else? And then we're also selling the original. The artists, we wanted to help the artists out, so they did prints. So there's like 50 copies of the cover, and they're all numbered and autographed by the artists, and so they're reproduction prints. So I think the prints are like $50. And then we have some original art, which is on there. If you just go to tfott.com, the fellowship of the thing.com, and then go into the store, or even under Tonisborg, there's like a header there, and it's like, it'll lead you to a page where all this stuff is for sale. And then the artists, when it was a really convoluted process, because we weren't just making a dungeon, we were trying to recreate an old dungeon. And the original maps are really confusing. You guys have the book. You know what I'm talking about. If you've looked at the originals, the secret doors, it's just a passage next to another, like they end, and there's like a little gap, but it looks like a dead end. Only the person who created that would know that there's supposed to be a secret door there on the original maps. Mm-hmm. And the stairwells go all over the place. And we even have had arguments about where the stairwells went and where they ended. So like what's in the book, you have to like pick your fights. And I was like, okay, you guys decide where this stairwell goes. Mm-hmm. So I let them decide how it would be in the book. But it's like when I run it, I'm like, no, it doesn't do that. It does another thing. But in order to transcribe the maps, we had to get David McGarry involved. And he redrew the maps by hand and did pencil drawings. And so we refer to those as the interstitial drawings. And so those are the drawings that were created that were then handed off to the actual map artist, which is Toby of Dark Realms Maps, who's phenomenal. If you're doing a book and you need a map maker, talk to Toby. He's just phenomenal. Oh, there we go. Is that a new thing there? How old is that? How old is that?
Who, Meatball?
Is that Meatball?
That's Meatball.
It distorted Meatball's face. Meatball kind of looked like a little baby kitty for a minute.
She still does, but she's 13 and a half.
Oh, yeah, she's great. Anyway, I'm sorry, I'm rambling, but so we did 2 sets of maps to create the book because we had to, for historical reasons, we had to be as accurate as we could be. We weren't just making a dungeon because we wanted to make a dungeon. It's a historical book. And so you can buy these maps, originals. There's 10 pencil drawings by David McGarry on the site, and there are 10 pencil and then inked drawings by Toby of Dark Realms. And we do that because we support our artists. Here's where we get into the whole AI art thing. We support our artists, and we sell their art, and we don't take a cut of what their art sells for. Like we're just marketing their product for them, and we license their art and we use it. Well, the maps are ours, but like even the artwork, if you wanted to go to like one of the artists and say, I really like that piece of art you used in Lost Dungeons of Tonisborg, can I use that in my book? They'd be like, yeah, just, you can license it for your book. Give me whatever their price is. And there we go. See, more people need to support this show. I haven't seen that yet, I don't think, tonight.
That's our first one, Mac. $2 super chat. Thank you very much.
Well, I mean, that's the whole thing is we support our artists by we can't afford to pay them like work for hire rates where we own the artwork, right? So what we do is we use their art and we license it for a fee. We pay them, and then or we just do this thing where we go through our website and we sell their originals and they make money off their originals, and suddenly like. An original that wouldn't be worth anything is suddenly worth something because it's like, oh, that's the drawing. That's the only original drawing that's from Lost Dungeons of Tonisborg. You know.
Right. I don't want to read you, but I think that we need to get to Venger before he turns into a pumpkin.
Oh yeah, let's get to Pumpkin here. I'm going to call him Pumpkin.
My skin is already turning orange.
Before you finish your transformation, shout out. We got another $2 super chat. Thank you so much, Ironcaster.
There we go. Nice.
Now I can afford the cherry flavored lube. So
woo-hoo!
Yeah, and thanks for supporting the not community.
It's a hobby.
the aggregate of weirdos. Let's just call it that. The AW. The AW at
what do you got for us, Venger?
What do you got for us, Venger? Yeah.
Okay. I put out a video earlier today. Apologizing in advance because for the longest time I was planning on doing a Kickstarter at the very end of the year or beginning of the next year for book 4 of the Chult trilogy. But I'm gonna have to.
I like that.
Yeah,
trilogy of 4. That's good.
Math, never my strong suit. I mean, obviously, I borrowed a little bit of that. Maybe it's not obvious.
Call it book T instead of 4.
From the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, like little promo advertising on the 4th book, and then the 5th book, the increasingly
inaccurate trilogy.
Inaccurate, right? Yeah, and that's what I do. I'm the Kaiser Sose of game mastering and game design. I just take like little tiny bits of all the pop culture that is just kind of swirling in my head, and I mash it together. I'm like one of those AI art machines. I'm the problem. It started here. They learned from me. You learned it from watching me, Dad.
Venger is the architect for Matrix.
That too. I'm also that guy with the beard.
But you're still selling your other
white
book,
enough,
right?
So I only need like a few more kids and like near heart attacks, and then it'll be just that shade. So anyway, I'm not doing that Kickstarter for book 4. I'm gonna wait a year for that so I can really focus on the next phase of not only my Chult campaign that's starting next Saturday, the second one, But the next milestone for Chult as like a campaign setting that for everybody else, you know, that I release into the world. So the next Kickstarter, since it won't be that, is going to be, you guessed it, the Chult X cards. So I'm going to have different options, like color options. You know, you get your fuchsia background with chartreuse, like weird texture slime skin on it. And then you get your chartreuse background with the fuchsia stuff. And then it's got all the cool words on it. So you got your Eldritch, Gonzo, science fantasy, post-apocalypse, humor, sleaze, pop culture, grindhouse exploitation. And it's a free PDF right now. So what I'll be selling with the Kickstarter is like the physical cards for anybody that wants some. I've done like 5 or 6 sets now. So I've kind of like perfected the process and think I can streamline it enough where if 100, 200 people want sets, I can maybe get it down to like an hour per set, maybe an hour and a half, to a manageable degree where within like 3 or 4 months I can finish like 100 of them or something.
I just want to ask you because I want to understand, and I think maybe not everybody understands how these work, but these are like these are the like perversion cards. It's like the game is getting too boring, and it's like you lift one up and it says like white cotton panties, and like the dungeon master has to introduce that into the game, or
right.
It says like
so it'll say
something
sleeve.
Perverted and Venger like it might say spankings or something.
Right. See, well, you have to do that on your own. I mean, if you really can't come up with something immediately.
See, I think you should get more specific because there are a lot of really unique special perversions that you could put in your bag.
Well, what you could do is you could create a random table. You could create like a sleeves table and then have like 20 different things, and then you could roll on that table and be like,
okay. So you have a sleeves table. And then
otherwise you could have like 100 cards, which then you have to buy another backpack or storage facility for your extra cards. So
okay, so you get like 5
I just broke it down into 8, like the 8 big categories. Subjects. And then because there's so many things, like let's say someone pulls the sleeves card, and or stimulates it, as I call it.
You stimulate the cards,
and like some weird Cronenberg like body horror flesh thing. Yeah, you stimulate it.
That really disturbs me right there. I had nightmares from their films.
We watched Existence last night. It wasn't as good as I remembered it, but they had some cool stuff in there. But anyway, so like let's say someone stimulates the sleeves card, and in the moment, the game master has maybe the flash of inspiration, and whereas if you rolled on a table or if you had a separate card or something like that for white cotton panties, your mind goes to something else that fits that situation perfectly. And, then it's up to the game master, which basically means that you don't take any power away from the game master or the overall story or the campaign or the adventure or whatever. It just incentivizes each player to be a little bit more active in the session and to help inspire the game master to remember certain Chultian tropes that he should be thinking about anyway if he's running Chult.
Keep him in line.
Exactly.
Or her.
Keeps everybody in line.
Or they them.
It's like a feedback loop, and it's like
I just had an idea. What would go well with that is an unsafety list where everybody fills out the things that are most disturbing to them, and the game master goes through the list and is like, "Well, okay, we're gonna have drowning, and
I've taken a beating over the last month because we did a show on safety tools."
Really?
On Nerd, we did maybe 6 weeks ago on Nerd Cognito, and I said,
for it.
Go ahead and give me a consent checklist because you're giving me a list of things to F you up with."
Right.
and
I've just data mined your paranoias, and I'm like going to come after you. Yeah.
We'll kick
Sorry,
it
I
back
didn't mean to interrupt your pitch, but
I'm pretty much done. So
I got
the
kind of
PDF is
excited
free.
when you described it as stimulating the cards. I was like,
yeah.
Ooh, I want.
Yeah, I literally looked at the thesaurus because I'm like, I don't want to use like tapping. I could use like activate, or massaging.
Titillate the card.
Yeah, titillate. So I looked at the thesaurus and I looked at all the things. I'm like, stimulate. Yeah, that's the one.
Yeah.
So I use that word a couple different times in the PDF, which is free. You just download it on DriveThruRPG or the Red Room. They've got it too. And there's printable sheets, so you can print up your own black and white cards that you could, if you so choose, decorate yourself with marker, colored pencil, crayon, whatever, paint, and then you can make your own cards. Or you could, ask me to do it for you.
That's like almost like a game unto itself, like a drinking game or something. Like you could have a card, like you could. Yeah, I can imagine it being like a drinking game, and everybody gets a card, and
Before we go to Pundit for his shills, I want to call out. We've got Rock with 5 upside down dollars from Australia.
I saw that. That's
Thank
amazing.
you so much, and our good friend Chris Miller,
very nice.
$10.
Hey, at any value, it's great support, right?
It is.
I mean, it's like do what you can.
It's support. Hit the like button. Make sure that you're subscribed. Those things all matter. Tell your friends about the Sunday Night Delight once a month. Inappropriate characters. That's right. All right.
But you should call it Sunday Night Stimulus or something like that.
Stimulating.
You can come and get stimulated or agitated. Either one.
Okay, so for me, the newest product that I have out now is Spectre Press has just put out RPG Pundit presents number 109, which is called Medieval Dream Magic, and it's a complete system of supplementary magic that has to do with the dream realm and the power of dreams. So you can use it. You can use it in any OSR game, or D&D based game with a variety of characters. It includes things like prophetic dreams, but also traveling through the realm of dreams or communicating to people through dreams and things like that. And it's all again based on accounts from medieval chronicles like Boethius and so on and so forth, that describes a lot about how the medieval mind looked at the nature of dreams as something that had real power and potency. But it's obviously also highly playable, and I recommend that you all check that out. So Medieval Dream Magic is on DriveThruRPG on the Spectre Press site. And aside from that, I also, my newest product that is out for Mad Scribe Games now is Heroes and Villains of the Silk Road. And it's already a bestseller on DriveThru. You can also get it from Amazon, I believe. And it's a source book for Sword and Caravan that has a large number of NPC characters that are all actually historical figures. You get their stats, but you also get their biography. So this is the closest thing I've ever done, even though a lot of my games are historical. This is the closest thing to like almost an actual history book, because you get to read the lives of these remarkable people, some of whom are very famous, like Richard the Lionheart or Saladin or Genghis Khan, but some of whom you've probably never heard of unless you've really done a deep dive into like the Crusades or the area of the Silk Road in the 12th century. And they're all statted, so you can use them as NPCs in whatever setting you're using. It also includes the assassin class for Lion and Dragon, because everybody demanded it, and some new high-tech devices from the Song Empire. And the Heroes and Villains of the Silk Road is available on PDF, obviously. It's also available on softcover or hardcover. I think it's 120 pages more or less, and it's the softcover is only $19.99. The PDF, I don't remember what it is, but it's $9.99. So there you go. So be sure to check both of those out. And well, we've got Chris Miller here, the publisher of Heroes and Villains and all my Sword and Caravan stuff, and he has assured me that Baptism of Fire is going to be out sometime before the end of this year. So keep your eyes open. Obviously, I'll be telling you all about it when it does come out. So keep watch for that. You might have it in time for Christmas.
Does he publish all your stuff?
Well, he publishes Sword. He published Sword and Caravan, and so recently he's been publishing a lot of my newer products. So he did Sword and Caravan, Social Encounters, the Wilderlands book, and Heroes and Villains, and he's going to publish Baptism of Fire. So I'm very, he's an excellent publisher, and anyone who bought one of his books knows what high quality his production values are. So
right. No, because you have a couple titles I'm really curious about. I don't have copies yet, so I was going to try to mooch a free copy from him.
That's between you and the publisher. It's one of the perks of not being a publisher myself is that anytime someone asks for a review copy or they have a complaint or something, I say, well, you got to talk to this publisher, whichever. I've got several publishers. Right. I talk to them. I can't do that myself.
That's such an easy answer, Pundit. I love it.
It's one of the many reasons why I'm not a publisher. I just like to write shit. I don't want to get involved in the business end of it.
That's actually a smart thing to do, like to acknowledge your skills and acknowledge your skills.
I'm good at writing. I would be horrible as a publisher.
Yeah, I would be too. That's why I work with Chris, because I'd be an idiot. I'd be like, yeah, let's just give it. My friends all want a copy,
Well, I usually don't have much to shill, but I actually have some interesting news. We've been going through the process with the big bad Amazon globally. You know that they have a program where they partner with certain, usually large businesses, to produce their merch. And Nerdcognito was actually approved, went through some interviews, and Amazon is now producing and distributing all the Nerdcognito merch just in time for our end of the 2023 year fund drive so that we can, keep the fires burning for 2024. What does that mean? Well, that means that all of the stupid things that come out of my mouth can now appear on merchandise and t-shirts and that sort of thing, including this year's fundraiser t-shirt, Gatekeeping is Good. If you want to pick this up now, all you have to do is go to Amazon and search for either Nerdcognito, or you can search for Gatekeeping is Good, and you are able to find those shirts. What does dealing with the devil do for us? Well, it gets our merchandise cost super low. You can see this is the premium t-shirt. It's retailing for $22. We still earn a slice, and it ships free with Prime. So before, when we did our fundraiser t-shirts, they were like $35-40. Now you can get the Prime version, $22 shipped. It is worldwide distribution, so it's right now on Amazon US and UK. If you are in a country that we're not on, just shoot the ladies that run the Nerdcognito Twitter account a message on Twitter, and at the push of a button, we can get it into your locale. So that is big news. We want to sell 100 shirts to pay the bills for all of 2024. Hosting, all that good stuff. We're yet to make a dime, and we're not in it to make a dime. We do it because we love it, but we do have bills to pay. And now we can produce some really cool merch for a fraction of the cost that it used to cost us. So I'm super excited. It's really big news. It's something that I'm very proud of because there are major companies. Hey, Venger's gone.
Is that his forehead, though? Like their little round thing there?
I don't know. And he left weird. Before he got to see the fruits of his imagination.
Yeah.
Which makes me sad because there's Belle Delphine fighting a few monsters. Now, as with all
wait. We got to see that. Put that up.
As with all AI artwork, it's not a finished product. I would take this into Illustrator or Photoshop and clean up things like the hands, like the weapons, like the things that I know. But this is using my curated image set, and that's what I was able to come up with. So it is a tool, and it's still got manipulation, right? I'm going into Illustrator and cleaning this up before I publish it. but it's definitely a tool that can produce some really good stuff if you have the chops to work the prompt and curate your own data set. Those are the two really big deals.
Actually,
I was talking about.
It's sort of funny because it's still to the point where it has a lot of perspective issues, and I can look all through that, and I'm like, ooh, like little details where I'm like, ooh, perspective weird.
It's the first run, but also I generated it on the fly while I was running the stream. So that's the trade-off. But for my shill, the big thing.
So I put a dolphin in there and some blonde chick. Yeah.
Just go buy a t-shirt, gosh darn it. Go to Amazon, search for Nerdcognito, buy a t-shirt.
So you're just doing that to like support this, like your own efforts in gaming stuff, just
for now. I do
like run a website or something, or
it's supporting the audio podcast and our monthly stream. And indirectly Inappropriate Characters too, just because all of the tools that we use have overhead, right? So that stuff costs money, and that's what we're doing. So that's all I got to shill. Of course, follow us and subscribe to us. We did just start our YouTube channel not too long ago, so we're babies on YouTube. Go to YouTube, search Nerdcognito, give us a subscribe, and then go to Amazon and buy a shirt, and then go to the podcast provider of your choice. Doesn't matter if it's Spotify, Apple, Google, iHeartRadio. We are on every major podcast provider. We're one of the largest podcasts in our corner of the hobby, and we want you to join us every week, every Tuesday. Our 200th episode drops this Tuesday, so that's a big milestone episode for us. Not the best episode, but it's a big celebration. So that's all I've got this week. I guess Venger did go nighty night, so everybody say goodbye to Venger's ceiling.
Yeah. Are we going to recap any of what we're discussing and continue this idea of censorship? Or, I mean, like, I don't know. What are we going to do about Reddit censorship? I mean, they can do whatever they want. You don't have any power. Right?
Well, Reddit has never been, I think, as central as Reddit fans think it is. Like it's.
I think their user base is a lot smaller than Twitter.
Yeah, it is, and it's usually kind of like computer nerds they were the ones that really got into Reddit early on, and it's never the same large. Obviously, it's never had the large scale appeal of like Facebook or something like that, or Instagram or stuff like that, or YouTube. But it also doesn't have, for example, what Twitter has. Twitter has way less users than Facebook or Instagram, but the users that are on there are people that are really like movers and shakers in the, in media, in government, in social institutions and things like that. And so it's become like the central app for news and information and for like the debates of our culture, which is why they were so pissed off that Elon Musk took it over, because suddenly it was no longer in control of the oligarchy. It was in control of this crazy millionaire that actually tends to be countercultural to the rest of the oligarchy.
Yeah, I mean, he's kind of weird. You can't, trust him or whatever. But so far, he's kind of being pretty hands off with it.
Yeah, well, it's become way better. Like, could you imagine so many of the things that have recently happened? That if the old Twitter people were still in charge of it, right, there would have been tons of things that we would never have been allowed to see or hear about on Twitter, because they would have kept going with the policy of controlling information, And
their whole sense. I mean, that's the experience of censorship that I experience on, say, Reddit. I don't know what my reach is on Reddit, right? Because I am smushed down. There is a group that's like an OD&D group, and I go and post stuff there, and I think about 10 people look at that one. And it's like got 1,000 followers or something like that, or 10,000 followers, but I bet most of them don't even play OD&D. Like OD&D players, we're like really thin on the ground,
You saw D&D and just subscribed.
What's
You'd
that?
probably be, first of all, promoting your YouTube a lot, right? And YouTube has a steep early process curve, right? So like for anybody who's starting, both of you guys have got relatively new channels on YouTube. And I can tell you, since you've been through the wars, that at the beginning you have to just keep plugging at it, keep posting content on a regular basis, keep working at it, and it'll look really slow at the beginning, but it starts to build up as time goes by. Like I remember when I got to like 200 followers, I was like, oh my God, this is great. Right? And that took like 6 months or something like that. Right.
And then suddenly
but then after that, it starts to, if you keep going at it, it builds up. Where people fail with the YouTube channel, I mean, obviously, if they've got shit content, that can be a problem, right? But it's just a question of putting in the effort. You have to make the videos, and then you have to share the videos on social media, and you have to just keep going at it, and it'll build up with increasing acceleration as time goes by, right? So at first, it seems like a real
that critical mass.
Yeah, once you hit the critical mass, then it becomes something that is pretty pretty effortless, really. I mean, you still have to promote and share on cross channels of social media, but it's about making sure that people have a reason to go there every few days, and then that's one of the big factors. I'm not saying like you have to be like, I don't know, the Quartering who does 5 videos a day or something like that, but I've always thought that's, I even question whether that's not counterproductive, right? But you got to have a consistent posting habit, and it's got to be relatively regular, and the sort of thing that people won't forget that you exist.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just curious about this stuff because it is happening, and so like I said, there's like, is it an individual level where individuals are just like, I don't like this, so I'm not going to look at it. Well, that's fine. You have free will. You are allowed to do that. Or is it on a government level, or is it on a corporate level? Or is it somewhere in between where the corporate level isn't paying attention to what the individuals are doing, like what sounds like on Reddit? Because I watched that stuff having to do with Macris.
Yeah.
And his what's his game? I forgot what his game is. Axe, yeah.
Adventurer, Conqueror, King. Yeah.
Yeah. And I went on there and I looked at what they were saying, and I was like, oh, that doesn't sound like the guy I talked to on Twitter. He seems, I mean, he sort of espouses that he's sort of conservative, maybe, but
he ran a conservative media network, right? But he's actually
he's kind of like one of those conservatives that's somewhere leaning into the anarchist range. Like they're kind of, I don't know. It's not like he's not a ring through the nose Republican.
I worked at Defy Media, and I can tell you that Alex Macris is a moderate social conservative, and it's with, as you say, some libertarian leanings, like free market leanings and what have you, right? But he's very far from any kind of extreme controversy, But he is a big believer in freedom of speech, and that's really, most of the times people who get attacked, by at least people who get attacked by the left don't actually they tend to ignore people who are, let's say, actual neo-Nazis or something like that, because it's convenient for them, for those people to exist, because they can just say, well, see, right? But the ones that they want to get rid of are the ones that aren't neo-Nazis, but that are actually, free speech advocates, because that's the thing they fear.
Hello, free speech. Yeah. Yeah, I didn't, so I like read this stuff, and they were like, oh, he's problematic, and then like, oh, he's a Nazi or anti-Semite. They called him. They got those special words, that they can lay on you: anti-Semite, homophobe. So I was like, well, that's weird. I talked to him on Twitter, or at least we follow each other. I'll just send him a message, and I sent him a message, and I said, hey, there's these people on Twitter, and they say you're an anti-Semite and a homophobe, and he's like, well, in 2001, I started a business with a trans person. And I was like, oh, okay. And he's like, so that's ridiculous. And then he was like, and I worked for a law firm that was owned by Jewish people. And I was dating a girl that was Jewish. He's like, how am I supposed to be an anti-Semite if I'm working and dating Jewish people? Like, I don't know. Is that how you hide out? If you're like one of these anti-Semites, you like make sure
they throw those words, Griff. They throw them all the time, and now they're starting to have no meaning, right? Anything that ends in an ist,
right? Because there are a lot of real anti-Semites, a lot of them on the web, right?
Especially
there's terrible stuff going on right now, and
since the Israel stuff came,
that accusation ends up devaluing anti-Semitism, right? It means that suddenly real anti-Semites get cover. Because you say someone's an anti-Semite, and people are going, oh, you're just being like one of those, wokists.
They do. It's a shield for them, because since the Israel thing, like, I don't like advertise, hey, Ryan's a Jew, right? But I think people that watch and are fans and know the show and have seen and interacted with me. It's come out. We joked about it. Ha ha ha, whatever. But when the Israel thing hit, the real, like, I got messages from people that I don't even know who they are. That was like
such a bullshit,
raging anti-Semitism, and I don't care. I delete it, I report it, I move on.
Right, but it's still shitty.
But it gets a pass because we're throwing these words when they have no meaning, right?
Right. Well, it's the inverse too. Is like, you know, running around and calling everybody a racist and a Nazi. If everybody's a racist and a Nazi, then okay, well then that's the social norm, right? Anybody who isn't is like an abnormal person, right?
That's exactly the problem, because it ends up normalizing the actual racists, you know.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's weird because, you know, in my life experience, I've met several people that survived the Nazi death camps, and you know, and I've met several people who, I mean, I've known people who were in World War II as soldiers fighting on either side, you know. And so when I see people throwing around these words and they're sort of abusing the words in a way, it's like, no, you don't understand how bad this stuff was. And you don't understand what it's like when the whole freaking planet is at war, you know, like, and every precious metal is like you wouldn't even be allowed to have a computer unless you're doing something important, because all the metals that go into your computer are being used for like military purposes, because we need all those things for the war effort, you know. And, yeah, I could go down that road, but yeah, I don't know. It's just weird. But back to the Macris thing. So I asked him about that stuff.
There are a couple of comments here. Ironcaster just said it doesn't devalue the words. It pushes the normalization of the sentiment. And Diversity and Dragon says it's like the blood test in the thing. It's revealed some real eye-opening opinions. I was going to say, you know, I know I'm not Jewish, right? But I have a lot of Jewish friends, and a lot of them, you know, some of them are Israeli citizens, but most of them are what you could call diaspora Jews, right? And a lot of them are, you know, people that are fundamentally from, you know, the UK or Canada or the US,
right?
And a lot of them were always kind of on the you know, although there are some very big Jewish conservatives like Ezra Levant and so on, there are a lot of Jewish people have been traditionally liberals, right, and voted left. And what's happened in the last month for them has been like an enormous red pill, right? Like I have a very close friend of mine who was, you know, he was very much in support of kind of the globalist managerial kind of agenda. You know, he liked the UN, he liked the EU, he liked all of that. You know, he wasn't lefty, but he was kind of you know, he was what you could call a neoconservative, right? Like you know, free markets type of guy, but you know, he's okay with open immigration and anything that's good for corporations and what have you. And now suddenly he's like retweeting tweets about how the UN needs to be abolished, you know, because like suddenly it like opened his eyes. It's like, holy shit, these people hate us, you know, like the people that I've been supporting all this time are you know, cheering for our deaths, you know.
Well, I would say that I won't go down that avenue with you because it's a very complicated subject, and it would require going deep into history and, you know, where do you want to decide where the problem began? I mean, you know, 300 years ago, 1,000 years ago, 3,000 years ago, where do you want to go? But I get what you're saying, you know, but I would say that it's so complicated that you're going to see other people having the same problems the other way, you know. I just don't want to go down that avenue because, I don't know, we would just, we will disagree.
Well, I don't know, maybe, but
you know,
yeah.
But back to the whole Macris thing. I mean, I was just astounded, you know, and so it was like maybe 3 days after that. Like I asked him, you know, personally, like, what's your stance on these things? I'm just curious because I'm curious and I have access to you and I can just ask you, right? And it's so easy, right? Instead of being like, oh, he's problematic. It's like, go look him up on the internet, send him a message. I mean, like the same thing with me. I got canceled by a lot of people. It's like, oh, you could just go and like follow me and send me a message and say, hey, these people say that you like believe blah, blah, blah. And it'd be like, no, I don't believe that.
We're talking about different kinds of censorship, right? And so if you as an individual say, I don't want to see what this person has to say, that's not censorship. That's
freedom of will. That's your freedom. Yeah, that's free will.
When I say, it's not when let's say if I say, I don't want to hear what Griffith has to say, that's not censorship. But if I say, I don't want Ryan to be able to even see what Griffith has to say, then that is censorship, right? That's censorship.
Right.
Is when
I don't want other people to see what.
Prevent other people from being able to see something you don't like, right?
Well, and what I saw on the Reddit thing was like they were using the term, like brigading. And I was like, but the only people that are here brigading are the people trying to get Macris censored, from this platform, deplatformed basically. And it was like 2 or 3 days later when they had the big proclamation, you're not allowed to talk about this. And I made some comment, I was like, God, you people are silly. Like what is this, Nazi Germany or something? Like, seriously.
Or the Soviet Union. They unpersoned him, right? They erased him from all the photographs, and everything.
Yeah, it's like, let's just change history. He never existed. There was acts never existed on this platform,
They did, and they were very successful at it.
Yeah, I mean,
it's mind-boggling.
It'd be interesting to go back and look and see if they've gone back and hidden or deleted every reference to acts.
Did they scrub Alex from?
Did they scrub him? That would be even more fascinating. But yeah, I don't know. It was pretty fascinating to watch that whole thing kind of like tumble and become a snowball and then become an avalanche. And there were people that responded too, and they were like, this is BS. Like, I mean, we're talking about elf games, right? Like that's why I refuse to fully go down the whole thing about talking about the elf thing, because I think it's really complex, and I don't think, and it has nothing to do with elf games. You can relate it if you can relate it to elf games, sure, but you've gone.
Well, let's say that in Axe, there's absolutely nothing really controversial about the content of that game, right? Like it's very much a milquetoast. It's not quite a clone. It's not an OSR clone, but it's very close, right? In that it doesn't go very far away from like the standard old school D&D model, right? It's not even, the innovative part of it is kind of that he's vastly expanded the domain rules and stuff like merchant, the economics of a gaming world, which is very interesting stuff. But it's something that that's existed in D&D since like the Rules Cyclopedia, right? So he's made a completely inoffensive game, and people are just going after him because they don't like the fact that he used to be in Defy Media,
Oh yeah, he's got some other history with that, but yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. So I mean, we're kind of coming back to full. I guess I keep asking, like, well, then where do we go? Because the problem with I know that you like to say like, well, you can come to my group and talk. Come to the RPG, is it the RPG site or the
RPG? It's
and you're free to talk whatever you want. But I think if I went in there and started talking about my ideas about, like living in a socialized society, and that does have its benefits.
Well, on the RPG site, just to be clear, we have the main RPG forum, and you can talk anything you like about RPGs there, right? You're not allowed to make like open political statements there. But there's a sub forum called the Pundits Forum, where you can make posts about politics and things like that. And if I'll
go in there and beat on your fans. I'll come beat on your fans. Give them a little.
Yeah, well, you can if you want to, but I suspect you'd find a lot of fans of Tonisborg on the RPG site. But I was going to say, actually, there is another thing you should look at if you haven't, which is aside from Twitter and YouTube and the RPG site. Now, Facebook, on the whole, I've never found all that useful. However, there are a number of Facebook groups about RPGs, including old school RPGs. And those groups, you have to look to see which ones have because some of them are dead, but some of them have a lot of activity, right? And so if you join those groups, you post there, you're likely to get a good reception if you're talking about your games, talking about Blackmoor and things like that. And there's some that are like dedicated specifically to like old school games, not just OSR, but specifically like the golden age of the the old school era, and things like that, where you're likely to get some traction. So that's a tip for you.
It's funny because we're talking about censorship and we're talking about it in relation to social media. And many years ago, I started thinking of designing in my head, and then I designed it on paper, a social media site, because I went on an old version of Twitter and I thought it was incredibly stupid. And I was like, this is dumb. I got a better idea. And so I created this website, and the reason I needed it was because I needed something that I could put my research work into, because I was doing a lot of research on cognitive science, and I was really kind of paleocognition, cognitive science stuff. And I was like, I'm amassing so much data. I need a way to organize this stuff, right? Because I've got references to a million articles, like articles about tribal people with spears and how their, spearhead shapes are, or articles about how you develop an idea and how you formulate what you believe is right or wrong and stuff like that. Anyway, so I went to Chris and I told Chris about this idea. And so he was like, God, my buddy Bob, who's this like heavy duty programmer, has got these ideas that are really similar to yours. We need to get together and do this. And so we tried to launch a social media product, and I don't want to go into the details of why that didn't work out. We had a couple of prototypes and stuff, but it kind of makes me think like, God, maybe I need to get out of the game thing and out of the games and out of the movies, and maybe I'll just do a social media platform, because, it's very clear that everybody is still looking for a thing. But the problem is that capitalism is actually rigged in a way that's very detrimental to creating safe environments, because once you go public with a company, you have a legal obligation to make money for your stockholders, and then you become part of this machine that's designed to like you're playing this shell game. Like the stock market is like this shell game where everybody's moving money around under this shell, under that shell. And so you've got companies, like you watch companies and you're like, their products have sucked, and you're watching.
And you're answerable to your investors, right? And that's how you get like BlackMoor and Dominion. They go in there and they buy 30% of your company, and suddenly they're demanding that you have, diversity quotas.
Or they're doing it just so they can send your company's value up, and other people are like, it's going up, I better get in fast. All these people sneak in and they buy stock, and then those people go whoop, and suddenly your company goes whoop. And so, but you do have this legal obligation to constantly try to make money. And so the idea,
right? He doesn't have to answer to anyone except his partners.
Oh yeah, he's privatized it. I take it. I haven't looked into that.
Yeah.
See, that's probably a really good thing. As long as he and his partners are like faithful to the fundamental ideas they agreed on as far as freedom of speech and stuff like that, then you probably have a really safe space to operate in. If you look at Facebook, for instance, they're just constantly monkeying around with stuff, and they're constantly, I don't know who's in charge over there. I think they just hire consultants, and the consultants come in. And
I don't know if anyone's in charge there anymore.
I barely use Facebook. I post stuff for the company.
I don't use it at all as a social media site in general, but I did an RPGPundit page, and with that page you can join groups, and then I promote my stuff on some of these groups, because like I said, that I have found to be mildly productive. It's not as productive as YouTube or probably not as productive as Twitter, but it's probably in third place for being able to get attention.
See, that's interesting because I don't get any conversions from Facebook, and I was, prior to Nerdcognito, I was owner / runner of some other groups that were sizable in numbers. 10,000 people on a Facebook group ain't nothing to sneeze at. But sales conversions out of even those groups, I got nothing. I have Facebook, it's there. What I've set up that can be automated is automated, and I pretty much have left it to rot, because
that's our experience too.
Yeah, the effort that I need to put into Facebook to get anything out of it isn't worth it, because if I put that effort in Twitter, in YouTube, in my podcast, I get far better results. We were talking about conversions privately, you, me, and Venger Pundit, and those conversion numbers, if I were to throw Facebook into that mix and say I'm gonna dedicate time into Facebook, I would be looking at less than 8% of conversions from Facebook. It's just abysmal.
I don't know. Chris will probably scream at me for revealing some of our numbers, but I'll just say we used to do very well on Facebook. We would spend, for every dollar we spent, we would get much more than $1 back in sales on the movie, right? And so it was like, but it wasn't huge numbers, but it was like yeah, we can just take this. We take some of the money, we reinvest it into advertising. We bump up, but then the whole Amazon thing came where the Amazon pulled all the documentaries, and that killed us. We had no platform to distribute on, and our sales went. So then we went back and we decided to advertise on Facebook, and our numbers on our advertising were really bad. And I mean, we went to before even that point, we had gone after we'd started advertising. We went to an ad agency, and the ad agency was like, "What kind of numbers are you getting on Facebook?" And Facebook, they aggregate your stuff and tell you like, this is what your reach is, right? And so we told them, well, we're getting up. I'm not going to say what it is, but I think it was top of the scale. Actually, I think it was just maxed out. Like when we do ads, because of the way we target our ads, like who the people are, where they are, what they do, we're 100%. Okay. And the ad company guy was like, we can't do anything for you because we never get that. Like we never get that for our clients, so you're doing something right. We'll leave now. Can't charge you any money. All we can do is damage it. Right. And so my question is now is like, I think I see so many ads on Facebook, and your visual time, they have to change. They have to give you enough content that you want along with the ads to keep you looking at the ads. Right. And they're really close to, well, for me, they're already over the top. I can't look at it because it's all ads. And so if they're putting that much ad space in there, like there's it's like, if you think of it as like the back sheet on an old newspaper where they had all the little ads, right? And you're one of those ads, and they're trying to squeeze more ads in. So your ad is just getting smaller and smaller and smaller. And so they've got these numbers worked where they've got to get you, supposedly they must know, like, we can squeeze your ad to this size and we'll still give you a return on your ad, right? But we won't, like, if we squeeze it too much, you're not getting a return on your ad. If we don't squeeze it enough, then you're getting a really good return. But I mean, they're monkeying how successful your advertising is. It's not like pay for an ad and it just goes out there and you get to advertise and see what happens. I think they're controlling also how many people respond to your ads.
Oh, I don't doubt it. And the pond is polluted. I
wouldn't advertise on Facebook anymore.
I liken it to, and we're all older guys. We remember this. You remember when broadcast TV had the late night trash TV. I'm talking like Morton Downey Jr.
And you get all the local ads, local origination.
Get the ads or 900 numbers. And if your ad gets slotted in with that batch, you're immediately dismissed. And now if you go through Facebook, every time I log on, I look at the quality of ads that they're presenting to me, not just the quantity, Griff, but the quality of ads.
Yeah.
And it's Alibaba or some sort of multi-level scam that's going through something. And
I get those sales sites, those weird sales sites that are sort of like Amazon, and they sell everything under the planet.
Yes.
And there's like Tenzi or something like that.
They're all Alibaba just skinned, right?
Right.
And
it's hilarious because you can look up Secrets of Blackmoor or Lost Dungeons of Tonisborg, and you will get a listing for it on this like Tenzi site. Yeah. And then you go there, and we're not even on it.
No,
it's just a phishing link,
Yep. They're pulling SEO based on your IP, and it happens all the time, right?
Yeah, but I just all this censorship stuff. I mean, it happens on so many levels. I know that you're not really dealing with that yourself directly, Pundit, but it sounds like Ryan and I do deal with directly with the numbers of. If I spend $1 on advertising, I would like to get, my dollar back and a little bit so that I'm making a profit because I need to make this much to cover whatever the expenses are. And I'm not seeing it on Facebook. And
look, the only expense I've incurred and that is similar to that is that I once, democratized the blue check mark. I got the blue check mark, right? Because one of the effects of that is that it instantly means that you get your tweets become more visible. If you
I got it. I paid for it.
Whatever it is, I don't know, $11 a month. But the return of that in terms of book sales, I'm pretty sure if I sell 1 or 2 books, that's already paying for itself.
Well, it's like you were saying, Ryan,
putting it out on Facebook.
Yeah. Well, like Miller, Chris Miller is doing your books.
Yeah.
He should talk to me about book distribution stuff because I can probably help him out. But
I didn't know anything about that.
No, but Ryan was saying, like Amazon, we got our t-shirts now, you can get it through Amazon, and that's great. And you're dealing with Satan.
I am.
Because, I am,
and I'm
too.
okay with that.
Well, if you don't, the problem is that they also have a monopoly, and so that's another thing where
where else am I going to go that has
like
that reach?
RPGPundit, I'm
thing.
like I love the idea of free market, but the idea of free market usually leads to monopoly, and we end up in a Robert Baron era.
Are usually a distortion of capitalism. I'm very anti-corporate, actually. I don't believe that. I think that corporations automatically create an artificial free, it distorts the entire free market to have them, and I think
that system is not working exactly.
Capitalist and supports corporations as a concept is not really understanding how the free market ought to work, because it destroys the individual responsibility.
I didn't know your definition. Let's just say that. But all this political stuff, and we can talk politics, and we probably agree on a lot of things and disagree on some things, but there's the real world out there and how the real world operates, and then there's our fantasy world. Like in my fantasy world, everybody gets free dice. What?
I'm sure you remember the WTO protests and things like that. Like I remember fondly when the left was anti-corporate, and now they're all corporate whores, right? They support corporations because corporations are they discovered. I think it was in 2008, right? You had the whole Occupy Wall Street movement, and corporations said, "How do we stop this?" Well, here's what we're going to do. We're going to take their leadership, and we're going to give them corporate positions acting as like diversity officers, and we're going to push this whole identity politics thing as a way to make the left stop being anti-corporate and start being pro-corporate, and it worked.
Yeah. But well, I mean, it's always follow the money. It's always follow the money. Like if you look at the Israeli issue, and I don't want to talk about what happened recently with that issue, but for years now, the United States, every president is like going over there and like, can you guys make peace and be nice to each other a little bit? And what they don't tell you is like how much you can go and you can look up how much money does Hamas get or whatever the PLO became, whatever it broke into, whatever. How much money do they get annually from the United States in aid money? Then you go look at how much money did Israel go get annually. Now take those two numbers and add them up and then divide it by the population of the United States. And that's how much per head every year we're giving them, okay? And so then we go over there and we go like, oh, you can either go like, we go over there and we're like, yes, we have to crush this side or that side. But really we just kind of go over there and go like, oh, we can't do anything. And it's like, well, that's interesting because we're like supporting this. I mean, they have no interest in stopping because the minute they make peace and stop, they don't get all this money supporting their military from the United States. They don't get all this aid money supporting them from the United States. I just say I'm always like, look at the money when you look at situations like that. And it's not, I don't care what happened in recent times, but it is like when you're talking about the whole thing with like, hey, the left is like anti-corporate here. This is kind of interesting, right? And then they stopped, right? I'm just like, look at where all the money's going with the whole like Middle East thing. And it's like, wow, we're sending a crap ton of money over there because it comes out to be like something almost to the like $20 a head a year,
Yeah,
and the truth is, red or blue, right or left, I can't imagine someone saying, I wouldn't rather have that money be invested in my home, right? And
sure, that's understandable. But if you look at the history of there's probably been about a dozen since 1948 until the current day. There's been about a dozen attempts at making peace in the Middle East, right? And all of them.
Yeah, you can look at how everybody's going to look at it differently, Pundit. That's all I'm going to tell you.
But the reason they've come to nothing, if you looked every single time, the people who rejected the peace deal was the Palestinian side. Like they've been offered things that were supposedly exactly what they wanted, and then they'll say no because for them the existence of Israel isn't acceptable.
Right. I mean, yeah, you go through that history. Well, I don't know all the details about that. I'd like to dig down deeper in that, just in my historical
What's going on now is a product of the fact that the Abraham Accords were actually like the best plan for peace in the Middle East, because what it did is that it brought on side these other Arab countries that were previously working with these Palestinian terror organizations against Israel, and said, hey, hang on, why don't we just do business instead, right? And so the fact
what a great idea.
Was about to sign in to the Abraham Accords is what triggered Iran to mobilize Hamas and Hezbollah against Israel again. Because the thing about Iran is that Iran is Shiite, right? And the rest of these Islamic countries are Sunni. And in fact, historically, the Shia and the Sunni have hated each other more than either of them hate Jews, right? And so Iran looked at this and said, oh shit, right? If all these other countries make peace with Israel, they're going to remember how much they hate us, you know? And so they're trying to destabilize.
It's it's very much, but it's like, you know,
when you get the peace deal is you have to not try to make peace with the Palestinian terrorists. You have to make peace with the countries that were previously supporting those terrorists, so that they'll stop supporting them, and then the Palestinians will be forced to make peace, you know?
Right. Well, I just question, like, you know, there's all this money going in there. Nobody has any incentive not to keep doing what they've been doing because they get paid. If the United States went in there and said, we're not going to pay you anymore until you finish this, they'd be like, oh, we can't bankroll this crap without the help of the United States. It's like, you know, I mean, it must be.
Right. But I mean, most of the aid money that goes to Israel is going to assist
military. A lot of it is military. Don't kid yourself.
Yeah, it does. But the reason for that is because Israel is the only really reliable ally that the United States has in the Middle East, right? It has a few other kind of fair weather friends, but Israel are the one guys.
Yeah, we jumped in there like in the 70s, was it? Anyway, I don't want to argue it, but I just say, look at the money. All I'm saying is look at the money, you know.
But you know, if they actually made peace, then Israel wouldn't need to have all that military money, right? And they've never been the ones that have blocked the process, right? The problem is you can't make negotiations when one side is saying, well, you know, what we want to do is figure out a way that we can coexist, and the other side is saying, no, what we want
to destroy you.
We want to Jew between the Jordan River and the Mediterranean. Yeah. You know, how the hell do you make, like, what's the negotiation there? Well, we'll let you kill half of us, right? Is that the deal we're going to make, you know?
Well, yeah. I mean, I'm not going to. So that's why it's one of those subjects you can't go into because you're going to have different opinions about it. And
it's very,
even
very
as outsiders, and it's a very convoluted thing.
Yeah,
but if you look at like
the genius of Ireland was that they realized, okay, we just skip out, we ignore the Palestinians, and we talk directly to the countries that were previously funding the Palestinians, and then that's where you get peace. Because the problem is the Palestinians, they're not in control. They're always being backed by something, either Syria or Jordan or Saudi Arabia or Iran, right? So if you get those guys out of the picture, then the Palestinians are forced to make peace because they're no longer getting all that money, you know, including all that UN aid money that was supposed to go to build, like, you know, water services that were instead funneled into Hamas bombs, you know?
Right. I mean, yeah. But I mean, you look at the thing about it is that you have to look at Ireland. I mean, like Ireland, they've kind of figured it out, and part of figuring it out was that they had to be like, okay, we got to like have amnesties, and we got to, like, you know, people have got to let go of their crap, you know, and I mean, I'm sure they still have every once in a while. They got problems. Things get economically weird. They're going to have problems, but for the most part, Northern Ireland is like, okay, we're trying to figure this out, and maybe because all the people that aren't part of either faction that's militarized, that are just ordinary citizens, are like, you know, it'd be nice to go to the grocery store without worrying about getting bombed here, you know, and they're sort of figuring it out, and so you look at, I don't know, it's just a mess, you know. I would just say that it is a mess. And it will not stop being a mess until they figure it out the way they did in Ireland or they did in South Africa.
The reality of it is when it comes to Israel and Palestine is that as long as the people in power in Palestine are the current group that are in power, there's not going to be peace, because those guys don't want, like they've just said, we want to keep doing October 7th over and over and over again, right? Like they don't want peace, right? So you have to have, to get peace. Like the reason it worked in Ireland is because both sides were politically exhausted, and also there was a massive shift over the last 30 years or so in the level of religious sectarianism. Like, it used to be that being Catholic or being Protestant was super important. And then that kind of started being watered down by the force of wear and tear of modernism. But in the Middle East, Israel is basically a Western society. They have like Western values. But for the Palestinians, the Renaissance was just something that happened to other people, right? It's nothing to do with them,
Yeah, yeah.
So unless there's a change of culture, there won't be a change of the political conflict.
See, I can listen to what you think, and I don't have to get angry. I just listen to what you're thinking. I'm like, okay, I'll go read up on that and think about what you're saying.
It's about understanding the position.
Yeah.
And
I
agree that there's that there's a lot of questioning about certainly there's been an interest among a big factor of the American establishment, which is the uniparty, right? It's both Republicans and Democrats. There's Republicans and there are Democrats mainly in government that are not really Republicans or Democrats. They're just part of the ruling party and they take turns,
Right.
Those people
I call it the big football game.
From like before Trump, the last president who didn't start a war was like Herbert Hoover, so like that's the military industrial complex is a real thing. And part of that involves throwing away American money at foreign wars that then provide opportunities for American businesses, like it's very nasty. And that's definitely a legitimate thing to criticize.
That was one of the things that came out of when I was doing research on Secrets of Blackmoor. The thing they emphasized was like, the rules we were using were these professional military rules. And the reason they came about is because we needed to figure out a way to train our officers so that they would be prepared for a war. And the problem was we hadn't had a war since since the American Civil War. So it was almost 20 years, 17 years before. And all our experienced officers were like, if they were 30 years old in the Civil War, they were already getting towards being 50 years old in that time period. And they're getting on and half of the experienced officers were just killed outright because they would snipe during the Civil War. In a battle, you just half the people in your regiment would be shooting at the leader of the other regiment. But I get lost. Sorry. The point was they hadn't had a war, and I had to look up where was the next war after 18.
Well, it would have been the Cuban War, I guess. The Spanish-American War.
It was at the Spanish-American War.
Yeah, but that was a very short one. It was basically it was Spain versus America and Cuba around 1901. That was where Teddy Roosevelt went with his Rough Riders. That was war. That was
more like a battle than a war.
Just flattened the Spaniards very quickly, and Cuba became independent in that it actually became like an American satellite state. Until Castro came along.
So we have a civil war in the 1880s, right? And that ends in the mid 80s, right? And, 1860s, I mean. And Strategos was written in 1880. That's why I got hung up on that. Yeah. And we don't have we have a little foreign war.
You have the Spanish in 1901 and then World War II in 1917, Or World War I mean, in 1917.
Yeah, so we have a period. How long did the Spanish-Cuban War?
The Spanish-American War lasted less than a year. So it was.
Yeah, it was a little, just a little tussle, But anyway, we have like a 15-year period in there.
I remembered wrong. Okay.
15-year period in there where there is no war. The United States is not at war with anybody.
For a long time, the United States could go decades without a war, right? But after World War II, there's been almost every administration had a new war, and it was just.
We just poke our nose into everything because it's it's good for the economy or something. I don't know.
You know, Eisenhower warned about the military-industrial complex.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I think we should probably start wrapping up here because it's already.
Yeah. We've been here for a while. Oh my God, we're like way.
yeah, 2.5 hours. That's quite long for an IC episode.
Well, we covered a lot.
This time we're not doing an after party at Diversity and Dragons, but probably next time we will.
I think it was a very intelligent conversation. We didn't get into any sniping or name calling. We just discussed what was going on. You know, so I appreciate that from you guys.
Yeah. You know. All right. Our next episode is going to be on the the 17th of December, I believe.
17th of December is what it looks like. Yes.
And there's a very good chance that that'll be with Alex Macris. So be sure to all mark your calendars, everyone, because it should be quite interesting.
Right. Make sure that you're subscribed, you ring the bell, you do all of those sorts of things so that you get the notification as soon as the stream goes live. Griff, your new YouTube channel is what again? So that everybody can follow. In the informal game, you're going to see bits and pieces of Secrets of Blackmoor.
And then we're going to put clips of me ranting.
And clips of Griff ranting. It's all good. Pundit's available on drive-thru and Amazon. Make sure you pick up his book and buy a gosh darn shirt. All right, everybody. Thanks for tuning in tonight. Again, 4 weeks, Sunday Night Delight, inappropriate characters on said internet. Boy, it's late. I'm all tied up. See you, everybody. Good night.
Thank you to Griffith Morgan for.
Thanks for having me on again.
Yeah, it's been a pleasure.
It's great.
All right, we'll see you all later.